Welcome to the Crafties. This is Julie. These are your favorite DIYs of 2025. I went through all of my seasonal videos from all year, and these are your very favorite from each video. This is the 2025 winners, part 1. For the first DIY, I wanted to do a little garden fence scene to welcome spring, so I'm going to use 2 of these little fence signs from the Dollar Tree. They are hanging signs. I just removed the hangers from the back because I want to make a standalone sign and I want it to be a little bit of a wider fence. So I'm going to use 2 of them together. I liked these because they had the little points at the top, like a little picket fence. And I do want to kind of maintain that spacing between them. And so how I'm going to do that is I'm just going to use a popsicle stick. It's about the same width as that beam there in the back. And I'm going to cut down 2 little braces that I can connect here to the back. I do need to kind of get the staples out of the way. The Cricut weeder from the Dollar Tree is great for getting those little tiny staples out like that. And maintaining the distance between them, like a normal distance between the different fencing, I'm going to go ahead and glue both of those in place with a little bit of hot glue. That way I have a longer fence panel like this that I can decorate. Now it's time to paint it. A lot of DIYs I do for spring, I do like a white fence. I love like a white picket fence look, but I decided to add a little bit of color to this one. And I wanted it to be really pretty. So I mixed some turquoise together with some white and got this really beautiful light turquoise, almost an aqua color. And I'm going to paint the entire fence. Now I am painting the back as well because this is going to be a standalone piece. So I want it to look finished from any direction that you might see it. I'm going to use some of that Dollar Tree craft wood for a base for this one, so it will be standing a standalone sign. So I just did the back first and then I'm painting the front. I made sure to use a brush just to get in between all the different fence panels, and I'm really kind of glad I chose this color. I think it's really whimsical and fun. And I like to use this color a lot, no matter what the season, but I think it's really pretty with spring. I think it looks great with the flowers. Now, I do like that color. I do want to give it a light distress, though. So I go back in with a little bit of ivory and a chunky brush from the Dollar Tree, slightly distressing it, wiping off any excess with a baby wipe until I just have a very soft distress on there. And I think that looks pretty good. Now I want to do a little sign to hang on the fence, and I needed something kind of small. I'm going to use a Dollar Tree wood ruler. I love these things for crafting with. I'm just going to remove the sticker and cut it down to size. Now, paint stir sticks would probably be a little bit cheaper than the Dollar Tree rulers, but I do try to like to keep supplies from the Dollar Tree. It's just accessible to many people, including myself, so I am going to use the rulers today. Now, I painted it white, like an ivory color, but not very thick. I just kind of wanted to be like a little bit of a whitewash on the sign. And I'm just going to do a little handwritten sign. I'm going to say welcome spring, but you could also say like welcome to my garden, something like that. Just with some handwriting, I'm going to capitalize spring. And I just kind of sketch it out with a fine detailed Sharpie first to kind of get my spacing and everything right. And then I went back over it with a regular black Sharpie. When I'm doing real fine things like this, I kind of like the Sharpies better than the paint pens because you don't have to worry about smearing and stuff like that. And then I whitewash over it to give it an aged look, just using a little makeup sponge and some ivory paint, and then a slight distress with some Antique Wax by Waverly. I just kind of work in one direction, wiping off the excess, just kind of aging it and giving it a little bit of a rustic look, which I'm going to do with most of the things on this project. If you have too much, you can always add a little bit more of your original color. And then I'm going to do a little flower since it's welcome spring. I used a Sharpie again, and I just did a very simple little flower, and I'm going to outline it with like the fine-tipped Sharpie and whitewash that as well to kind of make that go with the rest of it. For the hanger, I'm just going to do a piece of twine, something really simple. And I'm just going to glue that onto the back of our little ruler sign with a little dot of hot glue. And we can actually just hang this on the fence like this. I want it to hang a little bit crooked, but be over on the right side of the fence. For this side of the fence, I'm going to hang a little galvanized metal watering can. I think this is so cute. I got this at Target Dollar Spot, but you could also use the one that is a yard stake from the Dollar Tree. It's not much bigger. I've used that for crafting before. And I would really like to use a cup hook for this, but I couldn't find any in my stash. So I just used a little Dollar Tree nail into the fence to hang it up. I also wanted to hang at an angle like this, so I just use a little dot of hot glue just to keep that in place. And I'm going to do the same thing with the welcome spring sign so it stays kind of crooked on there like that. Now let's start on the base. I'm just going to use a piece of Dollar Tree craft wood. And I'm going to cover most of this with moss to make it look grassy. But I do want to stain it first just for any areas that might show through the moss. So I'm just going to use some Antique Wax by Waverly and go over the top, front, and back, and even like the ends of these, just to give that a pretty finish. And that actually stains really beautiful. I want to attach it like this, where it's almost to the back of the wood, and I use some hot glue to attach it. I'm going to use quite a bit of hot glue to set this up to make sure it stays in place. You kind of have to give it time to set up as well. Once I get it partially set up, I'm going to run another bead of hot glue here in the front just to help stabilize this, because it has the different things hanging from it, and so that makes it a little bit heavier and not wanting to stand up. And then I flip it around and I also do a bead of hot glue here on the back. And then just hold it until the hot glue has a chance to set up, and I think that looks pretty good. Now it's time to decorate it even more. I found some little mini flower pots that are wooden from the Dollar Tree, some of their little wooden ladybugs, and I also found tiny butterflies in the crafter square section. So I thought those would all be perfect to decorate this little fence for spring. These come in 2 different sizes. There's like a larger one and smaller one. I want to do like maybe 3 of them up there, just trying to figure out what I like where. They all kind of fit, so I think I'll do it like that, with 1 large one and 2 of the smaller ones. I'm going to paint them to make them look like terracotta pots, and I actually have the perfect color. It's called terracotta. This is a paint that I got at Target. I think it was like in a 4-pack of different colors of paint, but it's pretty close to the terracotta color of a pot, so I think that will work pretty well. And I just go over the outside and the top rim of all of them, anywhere you're going to be able to see them. And I'm going to fill them up with some tiny flowers from Dollar Tree to look like little planters with flowers inside. So once I get those painted, I also want to go ahead and paint the butterfly because these are unfinished. I'm going to do an orange color with this one, just painting it with a makeup sponge works well. The ladybug is already perfectly painted, so I think that will work well. I want to go ahead and attach the pots now before I add the moss and stuff like that, because that would kind of get in the way. So I just use a dot of hot glue everywhere I want one of my little planters to be, and I put the pots right there. Now up next is the ladybug. It had a sticker on the back, but I would rather it be hot glued flat to it. So I just peeled the double-sided tape off the back of that. And then I'm also going to add a few more details to the butterfly. It seemed a little bit plain. So it's orange, so I thought black would logically make sense for a pattern on here. So I just go around the different sections and the outer rim with one of the fine tip black Sharpies. I used like kind of the bigger one there for the body. And I don't want to add too much detail, but I think that'll be good because it has little cutouts in there. So you'll kind of see a pattern in there anyway. And a dot of hot glue right over here. We can have a little butterfly flying in front of our little spring fence. I did distress the ladybug just because everything else was kind of distressed, and the butterfly with a tiny bit of ivory paint just to make it match the vibe of this display. For the grass, I'm going to use some of the Dollar Tree reindeer moss. And what I want to do is just attach it all over the wood that is visible there to give it that spring garden feel. It makes it great like faux grass or foliage. So I put some hot glue there on that ledge and just kind of do it bunch by bunch. I don't want my bunches to be too thick, just enough to provide pretty good coverage. So I did the front first. There is a little bit of room on each side that I can glue some to, and then I also want to do the front here where you can see it. So I just hot glue that on, and I'm also going to kind of wrap that around the edges, basically anywhere you can see it. I had so much fun putting the spring DIY together. I love spring DIYs. They're so fun and bright. And I'm sure a lot of you guys are still in the depths of winter and you can enjoy thinking about spring. For the little flower pots, I put a dot of hot glue in the bottom of each. And instead of using soil or anything like that, I'm just going to use some of the brown floral moss from Dollar Tree to fill it in there. It's a little bit different color than the reindeer moss you can see, but I thought that would be a good filler, and then we can fill that up with flowers. A lot of times when I go to the Dollar Tree, especially in spring, I'm looking for some of the smallest flowers that I can find. And there's a couple different shades of the pink ones that are real tiny like this. So I'm just going to do 3 of them in this pot. That's the larger pot to fill that up. I'm also going to do like one of these. The whole thing won't fit, so I'm just going to cut off the tip of it where you have a little purple plant like growing up. I thought that would be cute and a nice variety as opposed to the flowers. And then this is the other color of pink, the very tiny flowers like this. I do have quite a stash of like little tiny flowers like this because I find I use them more for crafting than I actually do the larger flowers. So some soft pink ones in that pot. And there it is, our little welcome spring fence. I think it's so colorful and cheerful being the blue fence. So don't be afraid to paint your fence a color like that. But I think this turned out so cute and it was really fun to put together. I love all the little details, the little butterflies, the ladybugs, and the flower pots. So cute. If you're enjoying today's video, be sure to hit that like button. Don't forget to subscribe. We're almost to 50K, and I'd really appreciate it if you would hype today's video. For this spring bee DIY, I wanted to make a giant sunflower wreath for my front door, and I'm going to use one of the bunny wreath forms for this. Now, you really don't have to have the bunny wreath form. You could just use one of the medium size or smaller wreath forms like this. Now, the inspiration that I saw uses 5 or 6 of these bunny wreath forms and they stack them all on top of each other. There's no way I'm going to be able to find that many in Dollar Tree, and I wouldn't want to wipe them all out anyway. And so I was able to find one, and I'm just going to use some wired jute from the Dollar Tree to make the rest of my petals. Now, this was definitely way more work than probably stacking 5 or 6 of them on top of each other, but I'll show you how I made mine. For the wired jute, I'm just cutting a piece that is going to be a little bit longer than the bunny ear, right? And I'm using masking tape on this because I know how this likes to fall off the wire, the twine from the Dollar Tree, and this trick worked really well. You're not going to be able to see the ends of these anyway, so I can leave the tape on there. I just put the tape on there and cut it about halfway, and I'm going to go ahead and cut a second one here as well. I just taped every single one. I didn't want it to be too thick, but I do want it to be tight here. And I'm just using wire cutters to cut that wire inside of it. And it was actually able to cut through everything. So that made it a little bit easier and I didn't have to worry about the twine falling off of the wire. And I wasn't sure how many I was going to do. I know a lot of people do 6 of the bunny wreaths on top of each other. So that's a total of 12 petals. They're really kind of close together like that. So I think I ended up doing 10. Yes, 10 petals, and that includes the 2 bunny ears. So I need to cut 8 of these. I could get about 3 out of 1 package, and then the 4th piece wasn't long enough. So I'm just going to continue this on and kind of cut just a few at a time, and I can always cut more later. I didn't want to make too many. But this was probably the most labor-intensive part of this wreath DIY, was cutting all of these pieces and wiring them to the wreath form. Since I bent them in half like that, it was really easy to get that bunny ear or petal shape. And I made them a little longer so I would have enough wire to go around the wreath form. I'm just going to have it go around the middle wreath, the middle wreath form, that center one. And I'm going to wrap it around a few times to hold it on there. And that seemed to work. It does kind of want to come out a little bit. So I do end up gluing that twine down to the outer ring as well. and it worked pretty well. Now, if you were going to do the 5 or 6 bunny wreaths on top, if you want to do it kind of the easier way, I have seen other people do theirs. And what they end up doing is cutting out that center part of the wreath, the center circle, so that it's more of a flat wreath and it doesn't have like the 3D to it. So you can stack them all together without getting a super thick wreath in the middle. I kind of like only having one wreath form here in the middle, though. I think that made it a little bit easier for the final step of the sunflower. So I'm just trying to space them out kind of evenly, kind of like what I have the bunny ears. I kind of separated those a little bit so they weren't touching. I know a lot of people when they make these make their petals touching, and if you were going to do 6 of them, 12 petals, it would probably make them all touch. And so it's kind of up to you whether you want to do 10 or 12, but I chose to do 10. I didn't really want them completely touching. I wanted a little bit of separation between each one. And this was a time consuming wreath, and it was probably because of this extra step of having to make all these petals, but I absolutely love how it turned out. And it was the only kind of really thick wire that I could think of from the Dollar Tree that would be easy enough to maneuver and attach to this, but strong enough to keep its shape for the petals. So I just keep cutting these. The masking tape method worked great. I'll probably use that all the time when I cut this wire jute because I always struggle with it. And the total time I spent on this sunflower bee wreath was, I think, 2 hours. So it was a really long DIY, but I have it way sped up for you. So just a few more petals, and we have a flower shape. And from there, we can keep decorating this DIY. I was just checking my spacing on everything and making sure the wire was bent properly. And I think that looks pretty good. Now for the petals, I wanted all of mine to be yellow like a sunflower, and I found this soft, like fleecy yellow fabric at the Dollar Tree this year, and luckily I picked up 2 packages of this because it's definitely going to require a lot. Other items that you could use to line your petals is like the honeybee or honeycomb burlap. There's honeycomb fabric and other kinds of yellow fabrics as well. But I love the color of this one. I thought it would be perfect. So I just sketched out one bunny ear on the fabric with a Sharpie, and I'm going to kind of fold it here so I can cut 4 at a time. A little bit of a time saver. It's a little longer than half though, so I do have to go in for my second piece, but I was able to save quite a bit of this fabric. And then I'm just going to go ahead and cut it all at once. I didn't pin it down or anything. It seemed to stay in place pretty well, just making sure everything is still lined up. And we're going to cut this out. I want it cut pretty much the right size, but a little bit wider so that there'll be enough fabric to attach it to the sides of the petal. And this fabric, it was folded up, so there is some wrinkling in it, and I wanted to make sure that it didn't have any wrinkling in my sunflower. So I do go through and iron these once I cut them. It'd probably have been a little bit easier to iron the fabric first though, because I had to go in and do them all separately. So I'm using that same little bunny ear for a template. I've stacked it in 4 here on the second piece. And I'm actually going to draw it on there. It makes it a little bit easier. I probably shouldn't have used an orange marker though, because I had a hard time trying to cut all of that off. A chalk marker would probably work a little bit better, but we're going to cut out 4 more here. And so now I'll just need 2, and I still have both of those fabric scraps there, so no problem. I'll have plenty of fabric for this. I kind of like the fact that it's yellow, more traditional for a sunflower, this fabric, but you could always mix it up and use different fabric for each petal. That could be really fun as well. So I just needed 2 more, and we're almost there. And then I was like, I do want to iron these. I have a Cricut Easy Press. I don't really use this for t-shirts anymore since I have a fancy heat press now, but it's great for my crafting station to iron fabrics that I'm crafting with. So it is handy, and I love using it for that. So I'm just going to give all these a quick iron, and then we're going to attach these to the petals. I did have to do it a different way for the wire versus the wire jute, and I'll show you how I put it all together. Now, normally when I cover Dollar Tree wreath forms with fabric, I will attach the fabric to the back, the wire on top, and then I'll cover the wire with something else like Dollar Tree rope, which is what we're going to use on these petals too. And so I'm going to do that for the wired parts. I find that the easier way. But when I got to the twine parts, I had to do it a little bit differently because I didn't want that twine to get in the way. It's definitely thicker and bulkier than just the wire. The wire is really small, so it's easy to kind of hide underneath the Dollar Tree rope. So I just put hot glue all around the petal and laid this on here, kind of stretching out the fabric to make sure it goes edge to edge. Don't worry if you have a little bit extra fabric, you can always trim it off if you can see it after you add your rope. But these two petals were really easy with the metal parts here. So I'm going to do the same thing here for the second one. Now, since I can't really go underneath with the wired jute because that jute's going to get in the way, I'm actually going to lay it on top of it. So I'm just going to do a half of it at a time so my hot glue doesn't set up. And I just put hot glue there and lay my fabric out going all the way to the edge of it. And one thing I liked about doing the twine parts is the petals aren't perfect, which a flower petals are not perfect. So I kind of think it added to the vibe of it. I made my fabric a little bit longer here so I can make sure that it's all going to be tucked into the center of the sunflower when we're done with it. And that seemed to work really well. So I just do hot glue on half, lay the fabric on there, make sure it's lined up properly, and then go in and do the other half. And I just have to do that 6 more times. That also adds to like the time that it took to do this project, but I'm so glad I made it. It's so large. You can use this for a wall hanging, but I think it's going to look great on my front door. So many fun options for a spring wreath, and I think this is a perfect theme. And I can also use it for summer too. So win-win. I just keep going around. I'm using like the fuzzy fabric up here on this and attaching one petal at a time. Having them all cut and iron and everything like that did kind of increase the speed on this, kind of made it a little bit like an assembly line. Now, if you're going to use the bunny ears for all of them, you would go under the wire for all of them too. But this is how I made mine. Mine was a little bit more of a challenge, making my own petals, but I really love how it turned out. Now that I have it all together, I noticed that the petals that were not made out of metal wanted to come out a little bit. So I just put some hot glue on the twine on the back of every one of the petals and just glued that to the wreath form, that outer wreath form there, so they would stay flat against my door and not come apart. I guess I could have wired them to the outer ring as well, but I thought it'd be easier to kind of hide all the components if I went into that middle ring. But that seemed to do the trick. So I just made sure that those were all glued down really well. And now we need to make this look better by bordering them all out. For that, I'm going to use Dollar Tree rope. I'm going to use like the thinner one. I had so many pieces of scrap rope in this size, so this was a great DIY for that because I got rid of so many scraps. So I just start here making sure it's a little bit longer so it kind of goes inside that wreath form and simply attaching it with hot glue. I want to make sure that I hide the wire, and I also try to hide the outsides of the fabric. If there is some yellow fabric coming out, I can always trim that off. And I'm going to do these each individually, which really adds to the scrap rope factor. You could do this with a thicker rope from the Dollar Tree too, but I kind of wanted to do it with a thinner one if I could. And so the wire wreath forms are really easy. I just glue it to the wire like that, making sure it's in the perfect position before it glues down, and cut off the excess rope. Now, basically it's the same thing for the petals that I DIY'd. I can kind of feel there where the twine was underneath of it and just glue it to the edge of the fabric and just kind of do the same thing. And we're going to continue doing that rope all the way around. This is why this wreath took 2 hours, because there's so many steps involved in it. But I'm going to put this in super speed, rapid fashion crafting here so we can get this all lined out. Then the next thing I need to do is going to be the center of the sunflower. And I have a fun idea for that. I was trying to think of something circular that I could put inside there to have like a harder surface so I could do the center of the sunflower. I thought about using foam board or poster board, but I didn't know how well that would hold up outside. So I decided to go with a wood sign. And I was able to find a wood sign from Dollar Tree that I think will work perfectly. Now, once I have it all glued on, I do have like a little bit of a mess of hot glue here on the back. I went and kind of cleaned mine up a little bit with my heat gun, but honestly, you're not going to be able to see it back there anyway. And then it is time for the center. So this is the wood circle that I found. It's the perfect size. It doesn't have to be this one. It really can be any of them. But you know what? It already has a hanger on there, so I thought I would take advantage of that, kind of just putting that through the wreath form here. And I can attach this to the wreath form. The problem is that the wreath form, that middle section's higher and it's a little bit larger than the sign, so there's really no great way to glue this down. So I actually ended up using rope to glue it down. So I'm using more of that scrap rope that I used for the petals. And I'm gluing the rope to the wood sign and also to the wreath that I'm DIYing. And that's going to secure the wood on there, since there was really no good way for me to secure that wood down to that wreath form. I guess you could always wire it too, but I really didn't want anything else to get in the way. And you're not going to be able to see this rope in the end, but it did provide a good way to glue this on. So I just went around one time with hot glue. And then I just want to find kind of the center of this. I'm going to work from the center of the flower out with Dollar Tree rope. And for this one, I'm going to switch up to the larger diameter rope, just so I don't have to use as much. It really doesn't matter which one you use. And I start right here in the middle with a little dab of hot glue and just start spiraling this around. What I want to do is spiral rope until it covers the beginning of the petals and it covers that wire wreath form, and that's going to be the center of our sunflower. I thought about painting this like a darker color, but I really like how the rope matches the rope around the petals, and I think the Dollar Tree rope is really pretty on its own, so I'm going to leave it this color. Now, the wider rope does cover more at a time, but it is shorter. There wasn't enough on here to make it all the way around, so I did have to use 2 packages. But it's easy enough to start and stop on this. Just make sure you remove your tape from your ends and kind of push it together as you start and stop. You can always add a little hot glue to that little section to make it blend in a little bit better. And my circles stayed pretty symmetrical here. I was a little worried that it wouldn't be when I got to this part, but I didn't have any problems covering everything up here. So I just continue with that same piece of rope. And basically I use the whole thing. So going all the way around, so 2 packages of the thicker rope there for the middle. And I want to kind of cut this at an angle here so it doesn't take away from the round shape here, and glue down the little ends of the rope here with some hot glue. It's looking so cute. I really love how this DIY turned out. And this is a bee DIY. We haven't got to the bee yet. And then it's Dollar Tree rope. So of course it's a little bit fuzzy. I just went around with my lighter to help clean it up. And one thing I noticed is that my hanger was not going to be long enough for a wreath hanger to hang on my door, because then I don't want it to be behind the petals. I want it to be longer. So I had to add a little bit more twine to it to make mine long enough to hang on the front door as well. Now for the bee, I picked up this cute little bee wind chime from the Dollar Tree. You could also use like the bee yardstick or whatever you can find. This does have holes in the top and bottom. I'm going to show you how I go about covering those up though. I just use a pair of pliers and take all of the metal chain off mine. I thought it was the perfect size bee for this. It's painted really nicely, so I really don't have to do anything to it. I do want to cover up the holes in it though, and I thought I would use something that would also help to attach it. So I'm using some of the Dollar Tree thumbtacks that come in the little nail boxes from the Dollar Tree hardware section. And I put a little hot glue down here on the rope to secure my little bee to it. And this is going to also secure it. So I put a little hot glue in each one of my holes to glue the thumbtack down into the rope. And I can always paint those to kind of make that blend in a little bit. And that was a really good way to try to cover up those holes. I just used a yellow paint pen and a color that was really close here for the little end of my bee. And switch it up for a black one here for its head. And I also have a little bit of a black stripe here, so I'm going to continue that on too to make the thumbtack completely blend into the project. And this is how it turned out, my giant sunflower bee wreath for spring or summer. It was a labor of love, but I absolutely love how it turned out. I think it's so much fun. What do you guys think about this one? I've always wanted to make something like this, but again, finding that many bunny heads, unless you get really lucky or order them online, I think it would be kind of hard to do. But this is one way you can do it without them. A Lighthouse solar light DIY. I picked up this solar light from Dollar Tree with the little windows at the top, the square one, and one of the long vases from the Dollar Tree, which is the $3 ones from the Dollar Tree Plus. I'm just gonna pop off the bottom of the solar light. That's all you have to do. Everything was kind of intact on that one. And I wanted to see if I can make a higher end version of the plastic lighthouse that I've made here on my channel. So this one's definitely the most detailed solar light we're going to be making today, but I absolutely love how it turned out. It's fantastic. So I just remove the tag from the bottom and make sure everything is really clean there on the outside of my vase. And I found a really fun technique to decorate my DIY. We're going to be using duct tape. I made sure to use my 3M duct tape because it's a little bit stronger than the duct tape from the Dollar Tree. But I just want to do 3 black stripes on this. And since his face is straight up and down, making a straight stripe on here is fairly easy. One thing that I did notice with the duct tape and the glass, it was pretty forgiving. So if you have like a little wrinkle, you can always kind of pick it up and lay it back down. I'm going to slightly overlap that. And I think I have room on here for like 3 stripes. And then I want to use some of that plastic canvas from the Dollar Tree for the white part of our lighthouse because it's going to have little openings in it that will light up at night. And it turned out so cool. And I thought it kind of gave me like a brick effect. For my third row, I probably didn't space them out great, but I am going to have it overlap the bottom a little bit, but I actually take advantage of that extra duct tape here in just a minute. And again, just trying to get it lined up as straight as I can here in the back and to get it all placed down with as little bubbling as possible. Again, pretty forgiving. If you make a mistake, I think you can peel it up and put it back down. This is the plastic canvas from the Dollar Tree. I have been seeing this at Crafter Square, and I wasn't sure exactly how I could craft with it, but I knew that I could. So let me show you what I'm going to do. First, I am going to measure how long. It's almost a perfect length. I don't have to cut off too much. I'm just going to cut off a few rows here in length. And then I thought we could roll this plastic canvas and put it inside the glass vase to do that really cool light effect. And it's going to look like a white textured surface. I also measured about how wide I need it to be to roll without overlapping a lot. So I just trimmed that off and just rolled it up and put it inside of my glass vase. Now, your girl does still have poison ivy, and hopefully I'm not too disfigured in this video. It was so hot in the garage when I was crafting that there was no way I was going to be able to put a long sleeve shirt on, but the prescription prednisone has definitely done its job. So now you can kind of see the effect I'm going for. I think that these surfaces will be very weatherproof with the duct tape, and the plastic canvas is going to be inside, so it's really protected with the glass vase. I'm going to have the vase upside down for the lighthouse, but I wanted something on the bottom to attach it to weigh it down because I don't want it to break and fall over. So I just take one of the little wood ovals from the Dollar Tree. This one kind of has like the decorative sides, which is cool. And I just gave it a very quick stain with some Antique Wax by Waverly to bring out that great wood grain on it. Some of these are a little bit furry, the wood there, so just going to give a little bit of sand. I don't know if you call it furry, but that's what it kind of reminded me of. And I just sanded that part off, and then we just need to attach our lighthouse. Now that we have it all put together, I can just put hot glue there on the duct tape and the glass and glue that down. I'm going to try to add some more glue here all around the edges as much as possible here to try to make sure that this stays attached to the base outside. And again, if you want to use a stronger glue, totally go for it. But I was trying to get a lot of solar light DIYs done. So for the top here, it is square and the lighthouse itself is round, but I'm going to show you how I go about kind of making that blend together. First, I attach hot glue all along the bottom of the solar light and I place it right on top of the glass vase. Then for the gallery, I am going to use Dollar Tree rope. So this is the thinner rope. I don't think it really matters which one you use. And I am going to simply start gluing that to this bottom of the solar light and the glass vase, which is going to help bond them together too. And like that. And so I'm going to be starting out with a square because I'm going right up against the square solar light, attaching it to the glass vase, right? And when I keep winding that, I go all the way around, it will slowly almost come into a more circular fashion when I get to the edge of the vase, if that makes any sense. For this size rope, I could fit 2 rows of rope going around, and I thought that this could be the bottom of my lighthouse gallery, you know, that little section that is at the top of the lighthouse, like underneath the light. And then I just keep winding it. And I went around one more time to kind of make the sides of it, right? To make it look like almost decking would be. And so 2 flat and then 1 on top of the outer one. And I just go around the shape of that, and I think that's gonna work out pretty well. It did help attach it. It covered up kind of any of the parts on the top of the lighthouse, I guess the bottom of the vase that I didn't really want you to see, and it gives a fun little decorative touch as well. So that's what it looks like, our little lighthouse gallery. Now to decorate the base, I thought rocks would be perfect. These are the stones from the Dollar Tree, and I'm gonna attach those to the base. I wanna do really heavy with the stones here on one side. I love the fact that they're all different colors. You could do this with the black ones as well from the Dollar Tree. They have the larger stones. I think they might have some white ones. I'm not sure. But I kind of want to do most of it rocks. I'll do a little bit of it beach. But just going all around, even on the sides, I was able to hot glue this on. And I just wanted to look like the rocks are just piling up there on the side of the lighthouse. The other purpose that these rocks are going to serve is they're going to weigh down the bottom of the base to help prevent the lighthouse from falling over. I do have it like in my rubber mulch in my landscaping, so if it does go fall over in a heavy like windstorm here in Florida, it probably won't break. I hope not. But I wanted to see if I could do a higher scale version of the plastic one that you guys loved so much. So for the sand, I found some outdoor Mod Podge on Amazon, so I thought I would give that a try. I thought maybe it might be more durable. Have you guys tried this formulation of Mod Podge? I noticed that it was super thick, and I'm just going to cover the rest of the wood plaque there in the bottom where I don't have stones, and just use some Dollar Tree sand and glue that down. If it doesn't hold up to the weather, then, it's still gonna be the stained wood underneath of it. I think it'll look fine. I just did a nice coating, one coating of sand. I didn't go too crazy with it. And then I'm gonna use a little spray adhesive to kind of spray on the top of it to help glue that from the top. And this is how it turned out, our lighthouse solar light DIY. I think it turned out fantastic. I love it. And this is what it looks in my landscaping outside. So as you can see, that plastic mesh and the duct tape looks really pretty during the daytime because you have your classic black and white striped lighthouse. And you could change up your color of duct tape to whatever color lighthouse you want. And I think it would look really cute. But check out how it looks at night. It's so bright. Since I don't have the bottom on the solar light, it shines all the way down through the vase and out all the little plastic canvas, just like I envisioned. And it lights up this entire area of my landscaping. So I'm absolutely thrilled with how this turned out. I think it's so pretty, and it was such a fun solar light DIY to put together for you. I want to make a little flamingo floral wreath using one of the 8-inch wreath forms from the Dollar Tree. These are the ones that come in the 2-pack, and one of the pink flamingos from the Dollar Tree. I'm actually going to use one of these grill trays. I think these are seasonal for summer at Dollar Tree, but I thought it was a great use for a mesh that I can use to attach florals to this, because I don't want to just do the outside of the wreath. I want to do the inside too. And this is going to be the body of a pink flamingo. So I want to cover it all in pink florals, and I thought this would be a great way to do it. So the first thing I do is I tried cutting it first, but I thought it might be a little bit easier to zip tie it first. So I just put it over kind of to the side so I can have a little bit of this left. And I just start using the zip ties. I'm using the little black ones from the hardware aisle at the Dollar Tree. And ever so often, I am just zip tying that middle ring of my wreath form to this grill tray. I thought this was actually a really fun idea. I was going to use the plastic mesh they have, the Crafter Square at the Dollar Tree, but I didn't think the holes were going to be quite large enough in that for my florals. And this seemed to work out pretty well. So I just zip tie it all the way around, trying to make sure it's nice and tight, and then trim that off. Now I just need to trim off the extra wires. This is a pretty thin wire. If you don't have any wire cutters, you could probably get away with some heavy duty scissors, but I had some wire cutters, so I just went ahead and cut all the way around here. And I got to about here when I was like, maybe I should have covered all 3 rings because how am I gonna add florals to the outer ring? But I do need access to at least one of the rings, so I went ahead and went with it. I had already started cutting it, and I was able to figure out how to add the florals to the outer ring as well. So again, I just trimmed this all off, and when I saw this at the Dollar Tree, I thought, "Ooh, crafting supply." I'm always looking all around the store because you never know what you're gonna find at Dollar Tree. Now, you can if it's a little sharp, you can kind of fold it over a little bit. Just make sure that you don't poke yourself with that wire. But I think I got it on there pretty good. A slight overlap, so it's going to stay put, I think. Now for the pink flamingo, I really only need its head and its neck because the little mini reef is going to be the flamingo body. So I'm just going to use some heavy duty scissors and just cut him in half. For this side, I just want it to be nice and flat, and I'm going to actually work that around the wreath form. I'm gonna do it right here where there's like a crossbar, so I just cut a little slit here in the back where I can work that around the little crossbar in the wreath form and put it between the outer and the middle ring. And then I want to zip tie it. And I was wondering if a hole puncher would work okay on this. And these pink flamingos from the Dollar Tree are thin enough that a hole puncher worked great for this. I just punched 3 holes in there and then just put it onto the wreath form. And now I can zip tie this in place. I want this just to be coming out of the side. And then what I want to do is cover the entire little wreath with pink flowers from the Dollar Tree instead of feathers. I've seen people construct their little mini wreaths like this before, and they use the deco mesh, I guess it is, for like all of the flamingo feathers. And it looks really pretty, but I'm just not really into crafting with the deco mesh. I've done it before, it's just not my favorite. So I wanted to see if I could do something different, do my own take on a pink flamingo mini wreath. Now for the tail feathers, I thought I could do some of these pink flowers that kind of droop a little bit. One bunch should be enough because I just need a little bit of tail feathers. I'm going to use some different pink flowers for the rest of it. At first I cut it because they're on wires. I thought maybe I could wire that to the wreath form, but then I thought it would just be easier to zip tie them. They're a little bit larger on the end than they are in the middle, so that's gonna allow me to zip tie this and have them stay in place. And so again, just using those tiny little zip ties from the Dollar Tree, I'm going to zip tie 4 of these, one little bunch here where it's coming out at the end. And I wanted to do this first so I could kind of cover up some of these stems and stuff with some of the florals that we're gonna be adding to it. I went to Dollar Tree and I was trying to find everything pink. Pink flamingo. So I was able to find lots of stuff and I have lots of new ideas for you today. So that looks pretty good. And while I still have access to my wreath form, I should probably do a hanger. So I just took some twine and tied that around the outer ring and then tied that into a little loop. I was a little worried about it not hanging properly, but the little pink flamingo neck and head is so lightweight, it didn't interfere with it hanging level. Now, these are the florals we're going to be using. I thought these were really pretty. They're the hyacinth and they're a little bit different. There's 2 different kinds of flowers on there. I didn't notice that. I picked these because you could take them off and I thought I could use them for the middle of the wreath form, but there's actually both. There's ones that you can take off and ones that you can't. And it did cause me some issues, but I was able to work through it on this. So for the outer ring, since I do need to cover it, I thought I would just leave them in the bunches like this. That way I could just zip tie them on. Again, the plastic end is larger than the stem of it, so I should be able to keep these in place. And this is going to fill out that outer ring, kind of frame the whole thing. And so for this top row, I'm just working away from the flamingo where it's going back kind of like the same direction that I had the tail feather flowers. And I think the pinks really work well together. They had a couple different options of pink flowers from the Dollar Tree for this. The reason I chose this one is because all of the ones with the little white centers actually pull off, and that made it really easy to build the craft the way that I want to. Now, right here, I'm going to kind of switch directions and have it going away. So it's going towards the bottom of the pink flamingo now. So it'll be the same direction when it meets up with the tail feathers, if if you know what I mean. They're flowers, but they're feathers. And I just keep doing that all the way around here until I fill it up. I think I'm going to need at least one more for the bottom to make sure that that is really full. I found that the top one stayed in place with just one zip tie. I really didn't have to do anything else to it. But here on the bottom, they're going to droop down a little bit. So I did use some more zip ties to zip tie the other part so it would keep that round shape of my wreath form. And we're going to add legs and everything to him. So I called him a little mini wreath, but he actually turns out being pretty decent size when we're done with him. Now, these are the flowers that I was talking about that pull off. So they are perfect for this. I am just using my little hot glue skillet. One of you guys suggested that I get one of those, and I love this for wreath making. All you have to do is dip it in the hot glue. It's so convenient and makes things go a lot faster. So I'm just working my way around the outline of this and pulling off all of the white ones that I can see here to start doing that. And you can mix different pink flowers too if you're not able to find all the same kind of flower. I was lucky enough to be able to get enough to cover my entire little pink flamingo. And I really like the pink and the white on these. And I think that I added that Surebonder glue skillet to my Amazon shop, which is in the description of today's video. I think I put it under crafting essentials, and I love it. Definitely would recommend if you think that you would get some use out of it. I really do. And it's nice and large too. It holds a lot of hot glue. And this is how far I could get with all of the ones with white center. As you can see, I still need more, but these don't really, they come off, but then you don't get the center of the flower. But then I was thinking, oh, the ones that I put like in the full clusters around the outside, I can just pull those off, use those, and switch those up to the flowers that don't have the center and don't have the stem. And so that's what I ended up doing. And I was so glad I figured that out because I had already went to Dollar Tree and I was like, they did not have any more of these flowers at the store I went to. So I wanted to see if I could make it work, and I was able to fill it up. I'm glad I thought to do that because that worked really well. I don't know why there's two different kinds of flower on there. It's kind of different. But I really love those like drooping flowers that I use there for the tail. I think those are so pretty. I've been using those a lot in my spring crafting as well. Pink flamingos are perfect for summer. They're perfect for like luau parties. I love decorating with them. Now for the legs, I decided to get creative. I'm using some pink straws. I knew I wanted them to have pink legs, something lightweight. And I remembered I had some pink plastic straws. And I think I got these at Dollar General for a party. And I actually had two pink ones left over. So I think these are going to be perfect. I do want their knees to bend. Their knees bend backwards than humans. So I kind of want to play off that. So I'm going to go ahead and cut them in half. That way I can make little jointed legs. And like that is what I'm thinking. And this is actually just the perfect length and scale. And for some reason I thought all flamingos had like orange legs, but I looked it up and most of them seem to have pink. We were able to spot a flamingo when we went to Turks and Caicos on a Christmas vacation. Ours was more of a whitish pink flamingo, and so I'm thinking it might have been a juvenile because I've seen that they are like not pink yet when they're younger. So it could be, but it was really cool. We really had a great time observing it. It was in one of the little salt marshes in Grand Turk. And so I just zip tie these straws here to that grate. And then I also added a little hot glue just to make sure that those stay in place. So that's the top part of their legs coming out both sides. And then I want like their little knees to be bent like this, all kind of crooked. And I was trying to think how I could do that without really forming much of a joint. And I decided wire would work really well. And then I would be able to bend them. The strongest wire that I can find at Dollar Tree is the wired jute. It doesn't really need to be jute for this, but it's going to be pretty strong, so I think it'll work. So I just feed that up the straw, which worked perfectly. I can pull that out the other side and then wire that around the metal wreath form just like that. And then let me go ahead and cut that. I find cutting it with my Wire cutters works really well. Sometimes you have to follow that up with some scissors, and I'm gonna go ahead and do that here for the other leg as well. Then I can put the other part of the wire jute into the other part of the leg and be able to attach this all together, and it worked out pretty well. So again, I just feed the straw through there. And I was thinking about using pipe cleaners for the legs, but I didn't have any pink ones, only orange. I guess I probably could have done orange, but I really love how this turned out. So I used some hot glue here where the two straws come together, hot gluing that to each other and to that wired jute. Then I fill up the bottom of the straws with some hot glue to glue the wired jute to the straw there too. And then I'm gonna go ahead and snip off the excess wired jute. Now I was thinking pink flamingo feet have like 3 toes and they're webbed. And I was like, you know what? I could totally make that out of one of these flowers. I have a few left over. So I'm just gonna cut half the petals off, and that is going to give me 3 little toes there and use the body of the flower there for the bottom of the foot. And that worked out perfectly. And it makes sense because it really coordinates well with this pink flamingo wreath covered in flowers. I just attached mine with a dot of hot glue here on each one. The legs are bendable, very lightweight, and they really make the pink flamingo a lot larger. And I think it made him look really cool. This is how they turned out, little funky pink flamingo legs. They are the perfect color to match the pink flamingo as well. And this is how it turned out, my new pink flamingo wreath. Isn't this so fun? I really think he turned out so pretty. This would be great for your front door. It'd be great for a party decor, or you could even just hang this on your wall. It is really going to put you in the mood for summer and fun in the sun. For this DIY, we're going to use 3 of the craftwood pieces from the Dollar Tree and some of those beautiful fall leaf napkins. What I wanted to do was put 3 of these little craft board signs, which are fairly large, together to make a large fall leaner sign. I want to cover them with decoupage with these great leaf napkins from the Dollar Tree. I think these are really pretty, and they're definitely that same kind of vibe that I was inspired, like lots of leaf print and beautiful fall like forest creatures. And so we're going to have a lot of that in today's video. Now for the napkin, I just cut it down bigger than I need. And then I just remove the inner layer. You just want 1 layer for your decoupage. And I really need 1 napkin for each one of my boards because they're pretty big. So I'm going to go ahead and cut all 3 of those down, separating those. I find that painter's tape works really well for separating the napkin there without tearing it or messing it up at all there. And you just want 1 layer to decoupage. That's really important. And I love the way this turned out. It's so pretty. Now the craftwood pieces have kind of a finished side and a rough side, you'll notice. And so you're going to want to be working on your finished side, which is nice and smooth. And I just covered mine with a very thin coat of Mod Podge and laid my piece on top. Now the reason I made it larger is so that I wouldn't have to line it up. I could just put it on there and let that dry. I also try to just smooth that out with my dry hands to make sure I don't have any bubbling and there's no wrinkling. And I do the same thing here with the other 2 wood pieces. I want to put these together where it'll make a tall vertical sign. And this is actually going to be a deer sign. I think this turned out really pretty. I don't know if this is my first deer DIY. It might be. I've done reindeer. And so I did the same thing here with the third. I don't really care if the pattern like repeats. So I think it's such a random pattern. I think it's gonna look fine either way. Once I have that dry, I go over it with like the fine sanding sponge from the Dollar Tree. You want to be really careful because the napkin does tear easily, and get a perfect cut there on my first sign. And then I do the same thing here with the other 2. Just make sure that you get it really good and dry. The great thing about this napkin is it's got like a wood board design underneath the leaves, so that really goes well with this. And if you can see any of the wood grain through the thin napkins, it's gonna kind of match the decor as well. Very subtle and pretty. So we have all 3 of those decoupaged and ready to put together. The first thing I'm going to do is add hot glue. As you can see, the craft wood from the Dollar Tree is pretty thick. I'm thinking you might be able to also do this with the wood shelves from the Dollar Tree. And then I do that with the bottom of the sign there as well. I do want to reinforce it though, because it is such a big sign. So I just use my staple gun, and I think a 1/4 inch staples worked well for this width of wood. And I just stapled 3 times on each seam, and that really helped the stability on this project. Now for the deer, we are going to make the head of the deer out of this beautiful faux fur from the Dollar Tree. I think the color is perfect. Isn't that so pretty? And then I designed this deer head pattern, and I will include a link to this printable, this free printable, down in the description of today's video. And I tried to make it where it wouldn't take up very much ink on your printer. I just printed mine out on regular paper. I just need it for a pattern. So the first thing I do is just cut it out. I kind of gave it like a little bit of a fancy neck here and have the deer looking off to the side. And we're going to make the deer antlers out of another Dollar Tree material to go with this theme. And so I went ahead and cut that out, and then I kind of flip it over, lay it on my fur over here to the side so I don't use too much of the fur. And then I used one of those little chalk pencils from the crafting aisle at Dollar Tree to kind of sketch this out on the back. And I'll just try to cut off anywhere there that has some of the chalk on there, and I just go around all of the sides without pinning it or anything like that. And now I can just cut it out with my scissors. I really love this faux fur. I have used it a couple of times, I think for some spring crafting, but I think it's so pretty, and I thought this color would be really pretty for fall. They also have a similar kind of fuzzy fabric that kind of looks like a deer print, like a younger deer, like a fawn. That could be really cute too, but I really love the fuzziness of this. If you can't find it, there's other materials you could use as well, but I really like this color. If you can find something close to this color, you are going to do really well. So look how pretty that is. It's so fuzzy. I cut that out. It's perfect. And now we can put this on the sign and see how this looks. I'm not going to glue it yet because I want to make sure that I have enough room for my deer and for my antlers. And for that, I'm using the faux leather that they have on sale right now at Dollar Tree for only 25 cents. I keep finding this. I'm so excited. And I'm going to use the brown. I think you could probably get away with using the white as well. But on my white background, I thought brown would look better. And I'm just going to put it here on my Cricut Joy Extra mat. And I do have this SVG that I will include in the link below if you'd like to cut yours out with your Cricut. That's what I'm going to do, and that made it so much easier. Check that out. The setting that I used, I had to put that in my Cricut Joy Extra. It was not in there, and I will look up those settings. I had to look that up online, and I will include that in the description of today's video too. It was pretty easy to make your own custom setting, but I love how they turned out. And I'll also try to include a printable of a pattern like we did for the deer head if you don't have a Cricut machine in the description as well. I'm going to attach my faux fur here. I just use hot glue for that, so that'll totally work. I wasn't sure how hot glue and the antlers would hold up together, and I didn't want to take any chances. So I'm going to use a different kind of glue for the antlers, but it worked well for the little fuzzy deer. I just fluffed him up some. And then I'm going to use some of the tacky glue for the leather. It's nice and strong, and I won't have to worry about melting the leather at all. I know I have used heat, like sublimation, but I wasn't sure how hot glue would do, just like in certain areas on that. And I'm just going to glue both of these on. This doesn't really need like a lot of extra decoration because it's got so much beautiful things going on already with that great background and the fur on the deer, that I really think that's all I'm going to do. I'm not going to add a hanger to the back of it because I'm going to make mine like a leaner sign. And if I ever want to, I could always add a hanger to the back, but I think it turned out really cool. See, I can just stand it up like that on a table, and this is how it turned out. My little fuzzy forest deer for fall. Isn't it so cute? A great use for that faux leather from the Dollar Tree and the faux fur. I think it's so cute. My son keeps petting him. He says it's really soft. And this is how it turned out. Isn't that so cute? It's nice and large, and I really think this is going to be really cute for my fall decor this year. For this DIY, I'm going to use a Dollar Tree pot. I picked up the one that kind of looks like a wooden bucket. And what I want to do is make this into like a big fairy garden that I can put in my landscaping outside. So, the local fairies can use it and all. I thought it would be fun to try to do that because the fairy garden section also has like the doors and like the windows now. So I thought I could take the door and the window set, add it to the pot. The fact that it looks like a wooden barrel, I think kind of goes with the look of a fairy house, a fairy garden house. And so let's see what we can do with these. These are made out of ceramic material, and I want to glue them to that little pot. The pot itself is plastic. So I was thinking I'm probably going to need a stronger glue than I normally use. So I'm using some Gorilla Glue. And I'm going to combine that with hot glue so that I can get it on there quickly, but it's going to glue on stronger because I'm going to put this outside in my landscaping, so I want it to be able to hold up, right? So I'm going to have my door like that, flush with the bottom of it when it's upside down, just like that. And it's flat on the back, and of course the surface is rounded, but it's a pretty good area to contact. The most contact is down here on the bottom, so that's where I'm going to put the Gorilla Glue, and then I put hot glue up here on the top to glue it into place at least temporarily. And there is a little bit of gap around the arch of the door there, as you see, and I'll show you how I go about filling that up. It's also a fun way to decorate this giant fairy house. And I'm going to do the same thing on the windows. I'm going to do half of it with the Gorilla Glue and half of it with the Gorilla Glue hot glue. For the windows, I decided to offset them a little bit. This one I did almost all the way over on the side of the barrel, and this one I'm going to do a little closer to the front door just because I kind of like the asymmetrical look, especially because I want to do something kind of asymmetrical to decorate this fairy garden house. So this is what it looks like so far. We've got the door, we've got the two windows. The top of it is the bottom of that pot, so it has all those holes in it and everything. I thought the easiest way to make a roof would be to do a stone roof. So I'm going to use some of those little stones from the Dollar Tree and cover the roof. It's going to cover all of the holes and all this area up here, and it's going to give it that great like fairy garden house look. I just start with hot glue. I do go in and reinforce it with some stronger glue because this is probably not going to hold up outside here in Florida. But I did get a good start with the hot glue, and it's definitely easier because it dries quicker. But I just go around the edges with these, and I'm just trying to lay them down, trying to find the flat surface so I can make as much contact as I can with the pot there to glue those down. Another option to cover the roof, you could use the reindeer moss to cover the roof, but I have another idea for that on this project, so I thought stones on the roof would be perfect. So I just worked my way all the way around, and then for the inside, I just put like half of it with hot glue down, put the pebbles down inside, and then did the same thing here on the other side. Now, I do want to make sure everything is secure, and I kind of want to build it up a little bit. Not necessarily a second layer of pebbles, but every now here and there, I'm just going to make it a little bit taller, make it look a little bit more random. And I want to try to cover up a lot of those gaps where you could see like the plastic behind it and stuff like that. So I just go around with some more and just add some pebbles to it until I am happy with it. I love the colors of these stones. I think they're really pretty, and they're totally going to go with the aesthetic look that I was going for this little fairy garden house. And then I went in with the Gorilla Glue, and I tried to glue these on a little bit better. They're on the top, so that's going to help a little bit. It's not like they're trying to defy gravity like the doors and the windows. And then I'm going to go in here and fill up the gaps. Any gaps that you can see between the rocks. I don't want to be able to see any of the plastic pot. I'm just using some of that brown floral moss and some hot glue and just going in and filling those in. It gives it a fun little forest quality, and it also serves the purpose by filling in all of those gaps between the rocks. That way I don't have to keep building with them. I think that's enough to cover the top of it, and it gives it a cool stone roof look. And I did the brown floral moss just to kind of mix it up a little bit, but you could use whatever you have. I wanted this to be like lots of browns and greens on this little house. Now to cover the gap around the door, it's already got like a mossy look there on top. So I'm gonna continue that on with the reindeer moss from the Dollar Tree. So that's gonna fill in that gap perfectly, make it look like it's intentional and that it's not sticking out like that. And I go all the way around the arch of the door, just attaching that with hot glue. You could always use some stronger glue for that if you wanted to, but hot glue and something really light like this, I think should work well. Then I'm going to continue it on, at least on one side. So this is the side that I made the window a little closer. And I'm going to continue that reindeer moss on, making it look like moss has grown, but like only on this side of the house. And I want it to kind of be like evenly kind of arched over that window, going all the way up to the roof and then kind of coming down the other side of the window. It's not super curved like I want it, so I'm going to add a little bit more here to finish off the look I was going for. And I think this gave it a really cool vibe. And this is so fun. I'm going to set this out in my landscaping. I think it looks so cute. I'm going to use some of these like little wood ornament slices from the Dollar Tree. I think these are going to be perfect stepping stones. I can put these like in my mulch as little stepping stones, like leading out to it, kind of like this. And I think that will be so fun. Isn't this so cute? Our little fairy garden house made out of a Dollar Tree pot and a couple items that I found there from the Dollar Tree. I love it. I think it's really whimsical and fun. And I think it would go with about any decor. It would look good in your garden, your landscaping, even like out by a tree or something like that. The little ones would absolutely love it. I'm not a little one, and I think they're so cool. This is a DIY you guys have been asking me to do for a while, and I finally figured out a way. We're gonna DIY coral. I'm gonna use one of these little foam pieces from the Dollar Tree. At first, I thought I was gonna have to weigh it down with one of those wood discs at the bottom, but it ended up being heavy enough on its own to not need that. Now for the coral itself, I'm going to use the Dollar Tree wood dowels. These are a little thicker. I want to bake a larger coral. If you wanted to make a smaller one, I guess you could use some of the skinnier ones as well. Now for the little polyps on the coral arms, we're going to use just newspaper because they can't be super straight like that. I just took a newspaper and ripped it up into little pieces and wadded those up to give us a little paper backing for these. I'm going to have 5 branches on my coral. You could always make yours as big or as little as you want, but I think that'll be the right size for that disc. I do want the end to be a little bit bulbous, so I'm going to start there. And I'm going to cover everything with masking tape. So I put the newspaper on there, kind of like a bumpy shape there at the end, and make sure that all of my paper is covered with masking tape. That's going to help protect the paper a little bit when we go to put this all together. I wanted to make coral with just using supplies from the Dollar Tree. Everything is going to be from the Dollar Tree except for the school glue, but you could always buy that there. I just find it cheaper at Target for their back to school sales. So I want another branch here. I want them to branch out like coral do on each side a little bit randomly. And so I just choose different sizes of the newspaper that I've wadded up. I tape to the dowel and then I go around the newspaper like that. And I don't want my pieces too long because they tended to get a little bit stuck on themselves, but as long as I could do without starting a new piece. And these are pretty long dowels. I'm just going ahead and leaving them long like that until I figure out exactly how tall I want it to be. This is going to be my centerpiece, which is going to be the longest. I'm just going to cut my dowels with my miter scissors. I got those on Amazon and I love those for cutting dowels. I think that one looks pretty good. We can start on our second branch. I don't want them to be necessarily symmetrical, but I do want them all to have like bulbous ends here at the end, like coral looks. And there's so many different kinds of coral. This is kind of a thicker coral inspiration that I was going for this one, which is why I use the larger dowels and the larger like little pieces of newspaper, but you can make this as intricate as you want. I've seen people make coral using wire, but I could not really find any good sources of wire from Dollar Tree that's thick enough, that would be strong enough to hold this up. But if you're doing a more delicate coral, I think wire might work well. I thought that the wood dowels would just make this whole thing stronger. So I think they're going to make good branches. And the fact that we can add the newspaper like this makes them have more of that coral look. So I want this one to be a little bit shorter than the middle piece. So I'm going to go ahead and cut that one down as well. And then I'm going to do a third one that is about the same length as that one. So again, just newspaper, just random small pieces. I wad it up and I start at the top. This was a little bit time consuming to put together, but I absolutely love how it turned out. I know you guys have been asking me for a way to make your own coral, and I'm so glad I figured out a way. I was trying to determine a way to make it with supplies from the Dollar Tree. Like a lot of them call for joint compound, different things that Dollar Tree doesn't have. But I used baking soda grout for a Easter egg mosaic that turned out wonderfully. So it gave me the idea to try to make this coral with baking soda and glue. And I love how it turned out. So that is my second branch that I want to be kind of a medium length. Now for the final two, I want two smaller branches for the front so they don't block everything. So I'm just going to use my leftover pieces of dowel from those two pieces and do two more. These are going to be shorter little branches right here in front, but the process is the same. I do want them to have the little bumpy end. I find it a little bit easier to work with these before cutting them down. These are some of the shorter ones, so I don't really have that extra length, but I am leaving a couple of inches there at the bottom on my dowels, completely without any shapes down there so that I can put that down into the foam. And I thought that this was going to be a little top heavy with the coral up top, but since I cover the base with coral material too, it was plenty heavy enough, so I didn't even need to use the base that I prepared for it. So this is the last little branch of coral, and then I'm going to show you how I'm going to make this look like coral. This turned out so cool. It's actually dry now, but I haven't went to the steps of sealing it yet because I want it to be really dry before I seal it because I want this to be able to last. This made a pretty large piece of coral. If I were to buy this, this would probably be a lot of money. And, you know, most of the coral that you buy in the store is faux coral anyway. And now the fun part to make them look like coral. We're going to start with baking soda and glue. They're going to be a 1-to-1 ratio. I'm going to double it up, so 2-to-2 of baking soda and school glue. I ended up not quite having enough, so you're going to want to do 3-to-3, if that makes sense, because I did have to make more here to cover that base. I didn't really think about that, but I wasn't really sure how much of this I would need. Now, this isn't the only step in this like paper mache process. This is going to be a lot of the doughy material that we make to cover them, but we need something a little bit stronger to bond it all together. And instead of using like a newspaper with paper mache, we're going to be using toilet paper. So the first thing I did was just mix it up a little bit for the baking soda to start dissolving in the glue, and time for toilet paper. Now I had like a 2-ply toilet paper, you know, probably the cheaper the better on this. I just stole a roll and I am just tearing that. I ripped it into individual layers and then ripped it in half and then ripped it into little bitty pieces and added that. So the ratio is 1 part baking soda, 1 part school glue, and then 1 to 2 parts of toilet paper. I added probably 2 parts of toilet paper. I didn't really measure it. I just added it, stirred it up, saw the consistency of it to see if I liked it. And you are probably going to need to add a little bit of water if it gets too thick. So I do have a little bit of water standing by, but right now I'm just adding a little bit more toilet paper. Now I was worried my toilet paper had like a pattern on it, but the toilet paper fibers are so short, it dissolved right away in this to make like a paper pulp. I added a little bit of water because it was a little too thick. I think I added a little bit too much water. I did have to thicken it up here in a little bit, but we're going to start with our largest branch of coral first. And I'm just grabbing it and shaping it onto the coral. That's when I noticed it probably could be a little bit thicker. So to do that, I just added a little bit more baking soda to it to see if that made a difference. And it was a little bit thicker, but I think it could be even more thicker. You're going to want it like almost like a Play-Doh consistency, I think, for it to really keep its shape. So I added a tiny bit more baking soda to mine. I probably shouldn't have added so much water, and that was the perfect consistency. So again, I want to cover all of the little branches of the coral. I want to try to cover up all of the masking tape and all of the wood dowel if I can. And the bumpier the better on this. We are going to texturize this to make it look more like coral, but I think that will work. This is going to be the middle piece. I'm going to put this one right in the middle. I went ahead and tried it out for size. I think that's going to work right there in the middle of the foam piece. And we're gonna keep building. So I just grab another branch of coral and just start shaping that around. I was really impressed with how well this held up. It did take several hours, probably overnight, for it to dry completely. Today it is dry, but I don't know if it's really dry on the inside yet, which is why I haven't sealed mine yet. So there's our second branch, and we're just gonna keep building. I found that like the very ends of the wood dowels, I tried to make sure that you couldn't see that coming through, and I tried really hard to make sure that you couldn't see any of the tape, because in the end, I don't want any of that masking tape peeking out of the coral. And I think that looks pretty good. We have 2 more branches, and these are our smaller ones here in front. I want this to look like a branching coral, so it's going to have a coral base as well, which is what is going to be the little green foam piece. Now, I decided to leave mine white to kind of look a little bit like a bleached coral, but I think that you could paint this. I'll show you how I texturize it. I might make some changes to mine if I were going to paint this. My husband thought I should paint it, but I really liked it white, and I have like a light blue and white theme in my house, and I have a lot of blue coral, and I don't really have any white. Okay, now it's time to texturize it. I'm going to do that with white sand from the Dollar Tree. I chose white sand because I want my coral to be white. That way I won't have to paint anything. And then I'm also going to texturize it with an old toothbrush. That gives it that little prickly texture on there. I think the sand ended up giving mine more texture than this. But if you were going to paint yours, I would use less sand because that's going to be a little bit harder to paint, I think. I'm not sure. I haven't sealed mine yet, but I think that mine has a lot of texture because of the sand, because I did add a lot of sand to it, but texturing it with the toothbrush worked well too. And that might have helped push the sand down into the wet, I don't know what to call this, like paper mache. And I do the same thing here for the second one, just sprinkling white sand all over and texturizing it all over to look super bumpy like coral. So this is my second piece. I'm going to go ahead and use a screwdriver to poke some holes in here. It was about the same size as my wood dowel, and adding a little hot glue into the hole first to make sure that the branches stay in place and they are good and sturdy. When I did push them in there, I did make sure to repair any damage I did to the end. Pushing it down, I don't want that dowel poking out at all. So I did the largest one in the middle, one of the medium ones in the back. This is the other medium one that I texturized with sand, and I'm going to put that in the back as well. And we can do the 2 shorter ones in the front. So again, I just poke a hole in the foam, put some hot glue in there, and add our coral branch. You can make them go out whatever direction you think is going to look good. And the great thing about this project is that it's so customizable. You can really make your coral look however you want. And I have a lot of coral in my house that I've purchased, all different kinds. I think this is going to be a great addition, and it was so much fun to DIY it myself. So this is one of the shorter branches. I'm going to have it kind of go off to the side a little bit like that. I think that makes more sense. But I do want you to be able to see everything. While it's still wet like this, you can still kind of mold it a little bit if you need to. And then this is the last piece of coral. Now, right now you can see the wood dowels at the bottom a little bit, and you can see all that green foam, but we're going to cover all of that with the paper mache too. So last piece is going to be right here in front. And this is where I didn't have enough of the paper mache. And who knew you could make something so beautiful out of toilet paper and glue and baking soda, right? This is how much I have left, which is not going to be enough, but I can start filling in the top of the foam there in between the pieces to make it look like it's all one piece of coral. And then I'm just going to have to mix up a little bit more. I guess it's good to have too little than too much, I guess. I didn't have to waste any materials. So I did another 1-to-1 of the baking soda to school glue and then added, of course, more of the toilet paper. I think the toilet paper is a really important part for this, for stability, to help hold everything together with those paper fibers. And I like the fact that I can just leave mine snowy white like this and I didn't have to paint it. So that looks pretty good. I added a tiny bit of water to mine, maybe a little bit more baking soda. You're just kind of working with it to get it the right consistency. And then I just start grabbing pieces of that, working that around the foam base. I really like it without a base on it. Like, I was going to do a wood base or an acrylic base there at the bottom, but I really like it just on its own like this. So what we're going to do is now add the sand and texturize what we just added. So I just sprinkle sand in between while it's still wet and sand all around the edges. And then I'll go in there with my toothbrush as well to help texturize it. The toothbrush was definitely a time saver because you could really get a lot of little holes poked in it at the same time without having to kind of poke it over and over again with a skewer or something like that. So I just built up mine a little bit more here with my extra paper mache that I had, anywhere that I thought you might be able to see a little bit of the masking tape or the dowel coming through, or if I just wanted an extra area. But it is completely done. I'm going to set it aside and let it dry. It is partially set up here enough where I was like, oh, this is heavy. This does not need a base at all. But look at that really cool texture on there. Now I do want to go back with a sealer to make sure all of my sand stays in place. And I think that you could probably paint it after maybe you sealed it. I'm going to do a little research to see if the baking soda and the sealer will work well together. But look at that great texture on my faux coral. I love it. This was a really exciting new crafting technique that I wanted to try out for you guys, and I think it was a success. What do you guys think? For this DIY, I wanted to make a little coastal beach scene. I'm going to be using a bamboo cutting board from the Dollar Tree and some driftwood that I found from the beach. I'm going to use this as the base, and then I tried to pick up different kinds of driftwood at the beach. I have different lengths. I want them to be different heights, but not quite this tall. So I'm going to cut these down to size. And some of these I can actually get 2 pieces of fencing from. What I wanted to make it look like is a beach fence, like made out of driftwood. I thought that'd be really cute. So cutting them actually helped too, because it gave me a flat bottom on all of these so that I can attach them to the wood cutting board. I'm just going to go ahead and start hot gluing them from the left to the right. And what I did was just hot glue it to the bamboo cutting board, and then I go over it with some wire. I have some black hardware wire from the Dollar Tree, and I'm just going to wrap that together. If you've ever seen like an old beach fence, a lot of times they are driftwood and they're all wired together like this. So I thought this would give it a fun, authentic vibe to kind of tie that around each one of them, making it look like that is the structure of the fencing. And I guess it kind of is, because I'm just attaching it with hot glue there to the bottom. And since I cut all the driftwood again, I do have that flat edge. It makes it easier to glue this onto the bamboo cutting board and to make that stable. So I just go one at a time, hot gluing that together to the cutting board and then wrapping it with the black wire until I get all the way over here to the other side. I wanted this to look like a little fall by the sea display, and I have some really fun ideas using items from the Dollar Tree to decorate this. Now, the bamboo cutting boards from the Dollar Tree, this is one of the smaller ones. The original ones, I noticed they are now making them a little bit bigger. So you could do it with a larger one too. It's going to give you a little bit larger display. And a few more pieces of driftwood. As you can see, I do have them cut all different heights, which I like the variety. And I tried to mix up the color of my driftwood as well. If you wanted to do this with items from the Dollar Tree, you could always use like a plunger handle for your wood dowels. It might be a little bit thicker than this, or maybe some wood dowels. Now, I wanted to add some nautical rope to this for a fun touch, and I decided to border out the actual tray, the little bamboo cutting board here. And I thought that would look really fun and coastal and kind of make it look a little bit wider here at the bottom as well. I also want to add a little beach down here, so this will kind of give me a little bit of walls for the sand as well that we're going to be adding to this DIY. I just take the nautical rope and just glue that on the edges all the way around. And I want to add some fun fall items to this, like pumpkins, but also some coastal items as well, like shells and stuff like that, to make it look like a little beach scene. So the fence is going to be kind of like the backdrop here of it. And I think that looks pretty good. Let me show you how cute this little beach fence is, made just using driftwood. Isn't that fun? Now for the fence itself, I thought it would be fun to have a sign on it. I'm going to DIY one with some of the giant wooden craft sticks from Walmart. These are just big popsicle sticks, and the reason I'm using these is because I want to chew up the sides, but I want them to be larger. You could always combine lots of popsicle sticks together, but I thought maybe 2 of these would probably be good enough. One I think is a little too small. So using that same popsicle stick, I'm going to cut a second little board here. And again, I am just kind of zigzag cutting the end to chew it up to make it look like an old board sign. Yes, 2 of these I think is going to be perfect. I'm going to actually frame them together with the rest of this popsicle stick by just cutting another piece down and attaching the 2 little pallet board signs together with some hot glue for a very simple little sign we can hang on the fence. I painted mine a Cloudless by Apple Barrel blue color, just a thin coat of blue paint on the boards, and then went over it with my white paint pen. And I'm going to have it say Fall by the Sea. I did fall like just printing like a Ray Dunn font, and then I'm going to do like by the in cursive. I thought that would be cute to kind of mix it up. And then sea I'm going to do in the printing font too. I did have to go over it again because the white paint does kind of settle into the blue paint. And I really wanted that to pop against that. And I think that looks really cute. Now to make it a hanging sign, I'm just going to add a little bit of twine here to the back with a couple dots of hot glue. And I have a little sign that is functional too. I can hang it there on the fence, and it's perfect to spell out the theme of this DIY. I'm going to hang it right about here where it kind of hangs off to the side a little bit. Fall by the Sea. And then for the beach scene, I'm going to use school glue all over the bamboo cutting board. I just go ahead and squirt that out. I also like to kind of spread out the glue to really make sure everything is covered with glue here, even in between each one of the fencing, so that I can add some sand to this. I'm going to be using the tan sand from the Dollar Tree to give us our little coastal beach scene here for fall. And I also did try to make sure that it goes in between each one as well. And I don't want it to be too thick. I want to be able to glue all of this down. So I just kind of spread that out evenly. And I glued it from the bottom, but I think I can also glue it from the top. I'm going to use some of the little Elmer's spray glue. This comes in handy. I think I actually got this at CVS, but it hasn't clogged on me yet, so I'm really liking it. For the pumpkins, I'm going to use one of these. These are from the Dollar Tree Plus aisles, but I think they're so pretty. The little green pumpkin garland. Just be careful when you're taking them apart to get them off because they can break. I was able to fix this one, but I did take off a little bit of the pumpkin when I took it apart. I'm going to go ahead and pop the pumpkin stem back on it. I think the color of the light green mixed together with some of these like muted orange pumpkins from the Dollar Tree, and then maybe some of these little ivory pumpkins really has a really nice color scheme for coastal fall. I want to kind of pile these over here on the left, and I'm going to hot glue those down. Now gluing onto sand can be a little bit tricky. What I was trying to do was hot glue it and kind of work that down until the hot glue comes into contact with the wood cutting board down below, so I'm not just gluing it directly to the sand. Then I'm going to add some seashells here that I found from the beach. Yeah, excuse my hands there. I was having some health problems while I was trying to DIY this video. My hands were cramping up really bad, and I had like a high heart rate, tachycardia, where I actually had to go rest. It was crazy. It was kind of scary. Now for the starfish, I'm going to add a little blue starfish I got on Amazon. I just distressed mine with a little ivory to make it look a little bit more realistic, and added that down into the sand, kind of burying it in the sand a little bit too, off to the side. I love these fun coastal touches. I did notice that I needed a little bit more sand here in the corners. I just added that so you couldn't see any of the wood coming through. And then I'm going to finish it off here with another Dollar Tree seashell here, just gluing that to the side of the pumpkins. And I think I have everything secure where it will stay into place, but I love how this turned out. Fall by the sea. Here's a little closer look of our little driftwood fence with our fall scene. I love those colors of pumpkins together, and I think they work really well together with the seashells and the sand on this project. Isn't that fun? I love that. I love creating items like this to really set the mood for like a coastal fall. We're going to make a spring wreath, and I'm using the Dollar Tree's wreath form, the large one. This is the 18-inch metal frame and some of their burlap roll. I'm just going to flip it over to get started, and I'm just going to start by hot gluing the burlap roll here to the back of the frame to get us started. And I am simply going to wrap the entire wreath form. Now, I know from doing large wreaths like this from the Dollar Tree that one of these burlap rolls is almost enough, but not quite. So I have a backup there. And you can use any rolled burlap that you can get. I know it can be a little hard to get at Dollar Tree. Whenever I see it, I always try to grab it though, because it's great. Look at this. And it's just the right size to wrap it. I just slightly overlap it a bit. This is how far one roll goes, so I'm going to start and stop. And luckily it stopped right on the back, so I don't have to cut anything off. I can just glue one piece of the burlap roll to the next and keep wrapping. My seam will be there on the back. So I am covering it pretty good. This is going to have multiple rolls, the burlap. I'm going to have part of the wreath visible with the burlap, but it's also going to give me a great thing to attach things to this wreath form. I just make sure to end it here on the back once I got it all covered with a little bit of hot glue back there. And we have a burlap wreath form. I love burlap as a starter for a wreath form. I don't like frilly wreath forms. I always like a little bit more of a rustic feel. For the birdhouse, I picked up this garden pick from the Dollar Tree. And so it is a pick, so I just removed the little metal piece. But you know what? It also takes the little perch. So I'm just going to replace that with a skewer, like pointy end down, and I can just cut that off. I'm using my miter scissors there. I just needed something that was about the same size because that metal was really hard to bend and break, and this would be a little bit easier. I just put some hot glue there on the pointy end and attach it back in there. Raw wood like that is fine. I love the galvanized metal for this, but you could also do this with one of the wood birdhouses from the Dollar Tree. What I like about this one is that it's skinny, so it's not going to stick out far on the wreath. And I'm also going to add some burlap to the roof just to attach some fun. So I just cut out a piece of that burlap ribbon. And a really great way to cut this is just to pull a string right where you need your burlap. And it's a great way to cut the burlap without it fraying. And it gives you a little path there to use your scissors to cut it down to size. I'm just going to attach this to the top of the birdhouse with a little bit of hot glue. And I'm going to have two sections on this wreath form. I'm going to have florals, beautiful moss and everything up on the top left. And I'm going to have a birdhouse, a bird nest, that kind of thing down in the bottom right corner like this. So I think that looks pretty good. And now it's time to start planting the greenery. I had a vision for this one. I wanted soft pink flowers. So I went to Dollar Tree and I found the softest pink flowers I could find. And then I also want lots of greenery. So I'm going to use this one right here. It's not my favorite, but I think it's going to work. And some of their baby's breath. I ended up not using quite that much. And I also found some of this greenery. It's like a boxwood with like little berries, like little dots all over, and I chose the white one. Now, this is some greenery that I had left over, so it's not all quite there, but some of them are still together with like two. And so I'm going to leave those together on their wire. But the individual ones, I end up just removing the wire and just using those. That way I can have some smaller pieces and some larger pieces to build out this wreath. I'm going to do the same thing here with the second bundle of that. It's kind of a cheaper feeling plant, but it actually looks pretty nice. So I thought it would work well for this. I'm going to start with two of the two pieces on each side, having them meet in the middle, like right here. And since I'm attaching so many, I'm going to go ahead and zip tie this to attach it to the wreath form. But for the rest of it, I don't use zip ties just because I didn't really want to have to go back and cover all of these zip ties up. As you can see, they're pretty visible at this point, but you won't be able to see that in the end. Now, I've made a lot of wreaths on my channel, and I think this is my favorite wreath that I've ever made. It turned out so pretty. I'm going to have a terrible time taking this down when the season is over. But you know what? You could probably leave it up all summer if you wanted to. Now for the baby's breath, I'm just going to cut them in individual pieces. Really, a little goes a long way on these. I think that's going to work. And I couldn't decide if I should leave the leaves on them or take them off. I do end up taking them off because I felt like it took away from the rest of the greenery, the feel of it that I was going for. I just put those underneath that same zip tie, just using a little hot glue to tack them down to the burlap. And this is one great thing about the burlap. You can kind of poke your greenery in there. You can use hot glue to attach it. I am going to reinforce that because this is going to be on my door, so I don't want any of the stuff falling off. But for right now, I can just kind of poke it in the burlap, tack it down with some hot glue, and I'm layering. So I used some of the baby's breath, and then I'm going back in with that original greenery. And I want it to be a variety of florals on the sides, but that's when I decided I didn't really like the leaves on the baby's breath. So that's okay. They were only tacked down. I can go ahead and just pop those off and remove the leaves on this one. And I do that for all of the ones that I attached. I think 4 bundles of the baby's breath is enough. It provides a nice white. And there you can also use some of the white flowers from Dollar Tree, the little tiny white flowers. That could work as well. And then I'm just going to start tacking down the greenery. I did another layer of that fern kind, and then I also have this boxwood that also has the little white berries all over, so I think that's going to go really good with the color scheme. I wanted a lot of green and white for a nice background for those soft pink flowers that I found from the Dollar Tree. Now, if you can't find some pink flowers quite as light as mine, you could always paint them or whitewash them. They actually paint pretty well. And I am just going all over with the greenery, again, layering. Now I'm down to the individual pieces of like the fern-like plant here. And I just make sure I do it symmetrical. So if I add it to one side, I add it to the other, and I try to add it in about the same place. So another boxwood here. And I just want it to look full and lush, but only on this half of the wreath form. To reinforce it, I'm just going to use some Dollar Tree twine. It's going to blend in well with the burlap that we have on there, and it's going to be easier to work with than wire or even zip ties. So let me show you how I go about doing it. I start here at the bottom and I tie it on right here. I'm going to hide that back here in the back. And then I'm just going to simply take my roll and start wrapping this around. In between all those different layers, tying all of the greenery down. It's going to make it a lot sturdier on my front door when it is open and shut, and I won't have to worry about any of this stuff falling off. And I just simply take my time, go between each layer, and wrap this around. Now you can still kind of see it against the burlap, but I have a plan to hide all of that and to make this part of the wreath look really full and lush. So that is half of it. As you can see, it's symmetrical on each side of the zip tie. I did the same exact thing. And again, I just want everything tied down, but I don't want any of it being tied down. I'm just tying down the stems. I want all the greenery to be plush and out there. So that looks pretty good. I'm just going to wrap this around to the back. You can see about how many times I wrapped it and tie this off on the back. Originally, I was going to cover the entire wreath form with greenery, but I really loved how the burlap looked. And so I'm going to leave some parts of it just with burlap, but I do want lots of moss on there. So I'm going to use some of the Dollar Tree reindeer moss and just start breaking it apart in pieces about the same shape that I need. And I'm going to cover any of the wreath form on this section where you can see the burlap or you can see some of the twine or even the zip tie. So basically I'm just going to piece it together and it's going to make it look really lush and green for spring. And it's serving another purpose because it's covering up any of the parts of the wreath that I don't want you to see. And it's very lightweight. It holds up well outdoors. For me, here, even here in Florida, with the hot glue and the moss, especially when you're gluing it to like a burlap surface. I did that with my mossy basket wreath that I did recently on my channel, and it has held up really well outside. And I am just going here on this side too. Every little piece that you could see any of the burlap peeking through or any of the twine or anything like that, I just patch it with a little bit of that reindeer moss. I used a whole package for this just to go in all the different areas here. And as you can see, it makes this part of the wreath look really green and finished. I absolutely love how this turned out. My favorite project is coming up though. We're not quite to it yet. For the flowers, these are the soft pink flowers that I found. I'm just taking them off of their stems and using some hot glue on the stem to glue it down into the reindeer moss and the burlap. Both of those are going to help hold that on there. No need to wire these on there or anything. I do 3 coming down the left side like this, evenly spaced out, and then I'm going to do 3 going out the other direction. And then I'm going to do 3 in a cluster where it kind of all comes together. So this is the third one for this one. And for where the 3 come together, I'm going to kind of cluster them together like 3, like a little triangle. They're all about the same size, but I just love the colors. I think this is so pretty for spring. And again, I just put these like almost in a triangular pattern. Now it's time to attach our birdhouse. We can start working on this side of the wreath form. There was really no way to tie this on. There's no holes in it, or that would be easy to attach it. And I didn't really want to drill into the metal, so I'll show you what I end up doing. I just take some twine and some more burlap. It could be any fabric, and basically I glue it to the back, and then I make a little patch here to reinforce it with the burlap and the hot glue, and that should make it a little bit stronger. And I am going to just tie this around with the burlap. Right here in this corner, I want to leave a little room because I want to make a bird's nest for this one because I had a bird theme going into this. And I definitely want a little bird on there. I do want a little bit more of the green reindeer moss coming out on the sides. I'm so glad I can find this at my stores again, very plentiful. I thought about ordering a case online, but my stores always seem to carry it, and I keep stocking up on it because I use it for all of my spring crafting, especially like my fairy gardens and stuff like that. So I do a little bit more coming out both the sides of the florals. Now it's time to make a little bird's nest. I have some Dollar Tree raffia. We're making everything from scratch on this one, even the bird. So let me show you how I end up doing it. First, I'm going to take a needle and thread. And then I realized how old I am because I could not see the hole in that needle, but we persevered. I never sew either. My mom was a seamstress, not me. And I am just going to start simply wrapping this around my hand just to see how much of the raffia I need. And I think that's going to be enough, so I just cut off the excess. I wasn't sure exactly how I could build this, but what I did ended up working really well. So I have my little bundle, and I put my hot glue directly on my silicone mat. That is the great thing about these silicone mats. You can actually use them for crafting like this. So I did a circle, and I just lay my raffia right on there, forming that circle the right size that I want, and I am going to hot glue it to itself, circling it around into a nest shape. I am going to use my needle and thread to reinforce this to keep this round shape of the little bird's nest, but I was really impressed with how easy this was to make with just Dollar Tree or raffia. If you don't have a silicone mat like this, I have the one that I use linked in my Amazon shop in the description of today's video. It's called a monster mat. It's huge. You don't have to get one this big, but I love it. It is great for crafting. I just take my needle and thread and basically sew through there. I'm going to go one in each corner here in quadrants. and basically going in and out of the center, wrapping it around the edges and tying it off. Now for the rest of the nest, I thought it would be fun to add a little bit of Spanish moss. I have been trouble finding that at my Dollar Tree, but I have a little bit left over from other DIYs. I just glue a little bit inside my nest, and I'm also going to glue some on the bottom because I think it looks cool, and that can cover up the hot glue down there too. And we have a cute little bird's nest. It was so easy to make. Isn't that adorable? And there's other things you could have used for that too, but that is really the only material I had. Now it's time to DIY a bird. I'm just going to cut out some cardboard and cut a slit in it, and I'm also going to be using a 4-pronged fork. For this, I'm going to use some of this eyelash yarn from the Dollar Tree. I thought we could try to make a pom-pom bird with this. Now, I didn't have any yarn that was a coordinating color, and I needed something stronger than the eyelash yarn, so I used a little bit of jute twine in there. And then I just simply start wrapping this around. I put my jute twine in the slot first, and then I wrapped it about 50 times around my cardboard. I wish I'd had a little bit stronger cardboard. It wanted to cave in on me a little bit, but it still worked. And then I take my twine and I gather it together like this, making it go through the little slot there and tie it off once. And now I can pull it off. I'm also going to tie it as tight as I can and double knot this, leaving the twine on there to be able to attach this to the head of the bird. This is a little bit longer, so that's going to be the body. And one difference from a yarn pom-pom is you don't cut the loops on this. It has that eyelash fringe, and it makes it nice and fluffy already, so you don't need to cut it again. Now for the head, I want to make a smaller pom-pom. So I put my twine down the center of the fork and grab it. And again, I wrap it around 50 times. I count it just so I can kind of make sure exactly how much I put on my fork. And then I cut off it right here. And then you bring your twine through one of the middle of the fork there, and you can tie that off. Once you get it tied, you can slide it off your fork and double knot it. Now, this is what I have so far. Again, you don't have to cut the loops. It's already fluffy enough. You can fluff out your loops a little bit. But basically, I want to attach the head to the body of the bird. So I just line up my matching twine here and tie this off. I double knot it. Again, I wish I had some matching yarn because I do need to cut these off so you can't see them. I don't want that brown to show through. But I thought it would be stronger to keep my bird attached than to use that eyelash yarn, which is a little bit delicate. So right now I have a tiny pom-pom and a larger pom-pom. The tiny pom-pom is the head. I'm going to shape that out a little bit. I love the fluff on this because I don't have to add feathers or anything like that. You can fluff it out to make it look like tail feathers and stuff like that. And now it just needs a beak and some eyes. For the beak, I'm using just some orange felt from the Dollar Tree, and I cut out a little rectangle. I'm going to fold that over. I want a top beak and a bottom beak, so I just cut out 2 tiny triangles, just trying them on. This bird is really small, so I'm going to make them a little bit smaller and attach them with hot glue. Now, the reason I wanted to do a bluebird for this is bluebirds really hold a special place in my heart. My mom passed away about 6 years ago, and she would always send me bluebirds. She still does on occasion. And I love seeing a bluebird. It's so funny. One day after she died, I even had a bluebird flying next to my car, next to my driver's window, like all the way up an exit ramp. It was the craziest thing. I saw them everywhere. For the eyes, I just used some of the little plastic dot stickers from the Dollar Tree that I had painted black for a previous DIY. I hot glued one on each side of the bird's head, and we have a little bluebird. I think it's so cute. I'm obsessed with it. Now it's time to attach the little nest to our wreath form. I'm doing it at an angle so it is upright enough to be able to keep the bird in there, but I'm going to need to boost it up a little bit here on the bottom, so I decided to put a little bit of extra Spanish moss underneath of that to have a little bit of a base. Then we can add our adorable little eyelash yarn bluebird from the Dollar Tree. I think it turned out so cute. I hot glue him in its nest so he stays put. And then I also want a little bit more moss on this side to balance it out. So I take a little bit of the reindeer moss and I'm going to glue it underneath of the bird's nest and over on the side. And I want it to look balanced, so I'm gonna do it on the other side of the birdhouse too, but not too much. I do wanna leave a lot of burlap exposed on this because I think it's really pretty. And there it is, my favorite wreath I've ever done on my channel here, my spring wreath with all these beautiful florals, burlap, and a birdhouse and a cute little bird. We DIY'd everything was from the Dollar Tree on this one, and it is large. I think it's gonna look great on my front door. I can't wait to hang it up. You can kind of see it takes up my entire hall tree how big this wreath is. I picked up a wood tray and a wood pallet sign from the Dollar Tree. I couldn't find any of the fence ones, so I think this will make a perfect fence. You never know what you're going to find at Dollar Tree. I just removed the tags from these, and this was a hanging sign, so I'm just going to remove the twine, and I do want to remove the staples. These little tiny staples can be a little tricky to remove. I found the cricket weeder to be about the best item that I have found to be able to get these out. But I just want the pallet board sign and I don't want any of this on the back of it. I wanted to make a little watermelon patch. So I want it to be in watermelon colors. So for the garden box, I'm actually going to paint it bright red because we're going to have a lot of green in this. And I wanted to do the fence just traditional white. So I'm going to have like a lot of like red, white, and green today. Traditional watermelon colors. And I just go over the outside of that wooden box and the inside too, just to finish it because you might be able to see inside the edges of it. And I just went over it with a thin coat of red acrylic paint. I had a fun idea to make some DIY watermelons, and I thought it'd be really cute to have like a little scene. I could have like a little fence behind the garden. So I'm also painting the little fence sign white. And since this is kind of a freestanding DIY, I want the back to be pretty too. So I went ahead and painted the back of the fence white too. Definitely have to use a brush to be able to get down into the different pieces of this wood sign. And even though it doesn't have pointy slats at the end like the fence sign, I think this makes a pretty good fence too. And I thought white would be, I just wanted to do a traditional color for that one, which is why I put all of the bright color on the garden box. Now I wanted to do a little sign for my watermelon patch. I'm going to use just one of these little wooden dominoes from Dollar Tree, and I painted the back of it just because it did have a sticker on there. I'm going to paint it to look like a watermelon. I thought that would be cute. I'm using acrylic paint in Christmas green and just using a makeup sponge to paint that little tiny sign. You could also use like popsicle sticks, rulers, any kind of small wood to make a sign like this. And then I went over it with a little leaf green using one of these little sponge stencil daubers from Dollar Tree to kind of give it the pattern of a watermelon. I thought that would be cute. And then I'm just going to use my like fine tip white paint pen and write watermelon patch on there. Pretty easy. The lettering's pretty small. It's pretty easy not to mess that up. And then that will be a cute little sign that we can hang on the fence. I think I want to kind of hang it a little bit at an angle. I'm just going to glue it like it's nailed to the fence. And then I thought it would be cute to have like a little bit of vines growing up it since watermelons grow on vines. I actually got this material on Temu. It's a little bit smaller than any of the vines that I have found at Dollar Tree, and I think it's really pretty. I like it. So I just cut a piece and wrapped it around like that. I'm going to have them be all over the fence growing around, but I want them all to be kind of random. So I'm going to pull one through here and go underneath the sign, pull it around maybe two, come through another one. You know how vines grow, they kind of just grow all over the place. I can make that one a little taller than the fence. And I'm going to do some oversized watermelons because I want it to really look like giant watermelons are grown in this watermelon patch. So the vine is a little small compared to my watermelons, but I think it looks really cute. Now, this fits in here perfectly on its side like that. And all I have to do is add some hot glue here to the back and just sit it there, like lining up the ledge with the back of that sign there. It works perfectly. And we have our little watermelon patch. Now it's just time to fill it up with some goodies. Instead of like potting soil or dirt, I'm just using some of the brown floral moss from the Dollar Tree. You could also use the green reindeer moss. I think you could get away with that. But I kind of wanted the brown, so I filled that up. And this is what we're going to make our watermelons out of, the faux oranges from the Dollar Tree. You could also use the foam balls from the Dollar Tree. And then they had these seasonal balloons this year at Dollar Tree that look like fruit. So they're strawberry and watermelon. So I thought this would be perfect. I could actually cover the orange itself with a watermelon balloon. So I just cut the end off. I pull it as tight as I can. This is a little tricky to do without breaking the balloon. I had 4 of the watermelon in my package, so I had excess if I needed it, and just wrapped it around the orange. One reason I liked the orange is because it's kind of irregular in shape compared to the foam ball, and watermelons are kind of abnormally shaped. They're not perfect circles all the time. So I thought that would be really cute. And this was such a fun DIY. It totally worked exactly like I wanted it to. On this one, I did kind of rip it here at the very end, but it doesn't really matter because this is the underside. So I just kind of patched it a little bit with my excess pieces of balloon. But again, you're not going to be able to see that part. And I just simply sit both of our little DIY watermelons down into our watermelon patch. I think they look so cute. And then I thought I would take a little bit more of that vine from Timu and just string that along to make it look like it is growing amongst, vines in a patch. And then I thought the front of it looked a little plain, so I'm just gonna take my white paint pen and put Farm Fresh on there, just so it has, a little bit going on down here as well. My spacing wasn't great on this, but I kind of fixed that by just adding an exclamation point. And I went over that twice to really make that white pop against that bright red. And I absolutely love how this turned out. I had a vision of making a watermelon patch. I thought about making it in a terrarium, which I think would be cute too, but I think this turned out so cute. It's exactly like what I wanted. My son really liked those watermelon balloons too. He was wanting my extra ones. They also have strawberry ones, so I plan on making a strawberry video this summer, hopefully, and I hopefully will be able to use those as well. And this is it, our little watermelon patch. Isn't that so sweet? I love how this turned out. For this DIY, we're gonna make a pumpkin fairy garden house. We're gonna use a Dollar Tree pumpkin. I chose one of the taller ones that are like, what, $1.50 now. I just went ahead and removed the stem because I do want to paint that. And what I wanna do is use fairy garden items to make this into a little fairy garden house. So I'm gonna go ahead and paint this little pumpkin stem a little bit just because it's distressed with gold and I want it to look more like a regular pumpkin stem. So I'm going to be using like tan colors like this Beachcombers beige. Now for the pumpkin itself, I'm going to use the little fairy garden door from the Dollar Tree and the fairy garden windows. I couldn't find a matching set at my store because they kind of just have leftover stuff right now from the fairy garden section. But I love the windows. I think they're perfect for fall. So let's paint the door to match. It has like a wood frame around the window. So let's make this look like wood too instead of pink. I first go over it with just my brown paint pen here on the pink top of this entryway. Like this entire thing is not the door. The door is the little pink door that you see there. But I love these little doors. They have the larger ones too that you could use if you had like a real pumpkin, which Florida doesn't really get our pumpkins until later. I was trying to find a real one for you guys. I could not find one anywhere yet. They certainly don't last long in our temperatures here in Florida. But I painted the door brown too because it was pink before. And I'm just going to kind of update the colors on this. I want to try to make it coordinate with those windows because I think the windows are perfect. The mushrooms for fall, I love that for the fall theme. But just to try to make this look like wood too. So I went over it with brown. I'm just using a brush to touch up some of the areas I couldn't get to with my paint pen. And I'm also going to do like this little landing here too. And I think they have this door in a couple different styles. They probably have one that matches the windows perfectly. And then I went over it with some Beachcomber beige. I'm going to kind of distress that. I want to add different colors of brown to it until I kind of get a wood look was my plan with that. So I just went over this little archway here with that too, kind of wiping off the excess, letting a little bit of the brown come through. And then I also added another color of brown. I think this is burnt umber. And that's closer to the wood look that I was going for. But the paint pen did come in handy because it covered up all of that bright pink too. So I do the same treatment here on the door, distressing it with tan and a little bit of brown. I'm going to leave the little blue window on there. I think that's fine. And then I'm going to use some of that same brown color to add to the windows, just so it is the same color of brown to make them match a little bit. But I love the moss on there and I love the mushrooms on these. Now, this isn't a very big pumpkin. I noticed the larger pumpkins from the Dollar Tree. I thought that in the Dollar Tree Plus were a little overpriced for the size of them, so I wanted to try to see if I could do this with one of the $1.50 pumpkins. I updated the colors here on the flowers to have them be the same maroon color that the mushrooms are, and then I also updated the colors of the leaves here to a more of a mossy color that will match some moss that was on the windows. And I think they coordinate a lot better right now. So let's go ahead and put this together. I need to carve like a small opening here. So I kind of sketch that out with a Sharpie of where I'm going to need to start cutting. And I go in with a razor blade. And this kind of has like a skin on it that you can peel off. And then it's got just styrofoam underneath of it. So it's really easy to kind of hollow this out, just kind of grab it and peel off the styrofoam. And I don't want to cut too much. I want it to be pretty snug in there. So I kind of was conservative with the first cut, and then I can just go in and carve the styrofoam up a little bit more until I have a little recess here where I can put that door. I love crafting like fairy gardens and stuff for spring. I think this is my first one for fall. I really love the idea of doing a fairy garden in a pumpkin. This would be really cute for outdoor as well. I'm going to make mine for an indoor decoration, and I'm going to be DIYing a tray to display it as well. I think that's going to work. So now let's go ahead and do the windows too. I want them to be pretty close to the front so that you can see them. So kind of on the side of the house, I just sketch out the circle size of the windows. And just like I did with the door, I'm going to cut. These were actually a little bit simpler because you just cut a circle, pop off the skin, and just pop out some of the styrofoam there. And it's pretty easy to get it to the right size. On the door part, I feel like I might have taken a little bit too much styrofoam out at the base because the door, I'm going to want it to be straight, even though the pumpkin kind of slightly goes back a little. So I did have to fill that in a little bit, you'll see. Now here is the window for the other side. I'm just going to do it on the other side of the house. Again, I want you to be able to see it. So I'm doing it fairly close to the doorway, and I just sketched that out and cut that out with my razor blade. I think this would be really fun to do with a real pumpkin as well. If any of you guys do this DIY, be sure to share it with me over on my Facebook group. I would love to see it. So I have everything carved out. We can go ahead and start putting this together. I use a little hot glue here inside the styrofoam and add my window. You want it to look like it is part of the pumpkin. The pumpkin is going to be the little house. And I do the same thing here on the other window, just attaching it with hot glue. Pretty easy to do. I love the fact that the pumpkin's just the traditional orange color. I'm going to leave it like that. And this is the area I may have removed too much because I noticed there's a little gap there. I just filled mine in with a little bit of spackling to try to fix that issue and gave it a quick dry. Then I'm going to add hot glue here in the doorway and add our door. If I hadn't carved that part out there, it probably would have been a perfect fit. I wasn't really thinking about how the door kind of needed to sit flat against the ground. And so that kind of impacted that. So any areas where you can see anything like here with the spackling, I just went in with a little orange paint to paint that to kind of make it look even like carved a little bit like the inside of a pumpkin. And I have a little area over here where you can see a little bit of the styrofoam. I don't want to be able to see any of the styrofoam here with our little fairy garden house. Now for the pumpkin stem, I am going to add that like right about there. I think that looks really good. I'm going to hot glue that to make sure it stays in. Really cute so far. Here is a little preview of our little pumpkin fairy garden. Now I want to DIY a tray for this. I'm going to use one of these trays from the Dollar Tree. These are really cute. I don't know why they don't put feet on them though. So I'm going to do some little legs with some of the wood stems from the Dollar Tree. These are kind of some of the chunkier ones, but I found 4 that were the same height. And I'm just going to hot glue those on to the bottom. Other things you can use for legs are like the little Christmas trees that they have every year. There's lots of little wooden items and wood beads and stuff like that that make great feet as well. Now it's painted this brown color. I want it to look more like distressed wood and kind of like a tree slice on the side. So I distressed it with a beachcomber beige, and then I used a baby wipe to kind of just, blend it together to try to get the color that I was looking for. And I just don't want it to be super dark. We're going to be adding like a little yard and everything there for our fairy garden house. For this side, it's like an unfinished like MDF on the side. So I used some brown paint for that, distressing that part to try to make it look kind of more like a tree slice is what I was going for, since I have like the little wood stems for the legs. I wanted it to look more rustic to go with my fall forest vibe. And I went back in with some of the tan too to kind of give me a faux wood grain there on the outside. And I just kind of touched it up here and there until I was happy with it. I definitely wanted the different colors of brown and tan to show through and just make it, look more like wood and less like that dark brown color that it started with. So I just distressed it back and forth until I was happy with it. I think this is the final coat of paint on this one, and I like the color way better. Now for the little pumpkin, we're going to sit it right here in the center, and we'll have room to do like a little yard area to frame this out and really make this pop. For the house, it has the door. There's like a little bit of opening between the doorway and the pumpkin, and there is moss around the windows. So I decided to add some reindeer moss from the Dollar Tree, just tiny bits here around the door. And it really kind of sets the feel of the fairy garden house. I'm going to do maybe a little over here as well, but I don't really think the windows need it. Down here, I definitely need it to kind of cover that void down there. And so I glued some of that to the very bottom, and that helped. And now I can go ahead and attach my fairy garden to the tray. I just put some hot glue on the bottom of the pumpkin and then glue this right here in the middle. I noticed Dollar General had fairy garden stuff too. Most of their doors and stuff were larger though, so you're probably going to need a larger pumpkin. And so I glued it, and now it's time to decorate the yard. I want it to look kind of like a forest floor, so I'm going to use the browner floral moss from the Dollar Tree. If you only have reindeer moss, I think that would be really cute too, but I kind of like the brownish color of this. I just go around hot gluing that down because it doesn't really stick together like the reindeer moss does, so you really need to kind of glue it down. But I also want there to be a little bit of reindeer moss mixed in. It makes it look a little bit better there with the different colors of green. Now for the yard, I wanted to have mushrooms for fall. I love that idea. I picked up 2 different kinds of wooden mushrooms at Dollar Tree. These were actually not in the fall aisle. I always find these in the Crafter Square. They have 2 different ones, as you can see here. And I am going to paint these because they are just unfinished wood. I started with white, and then I looked at the mushrooms on the windows, and they were more of an ivory. So I switched up to ivory, and I'm painting just the stems and the underside of the mushroom, and then I can go do the mushroom caps in different colors. Super cute. I don't know which one of these mushrooms I like better. I kind of like this one. It reminds me of like the morel mushrooms that we would always go mushroom hunting for when I was a kid in Missouri. So I went ahead and painted 3 of them. And then I'm going to paint this maroon. I have a paint pen. I thought that would be a really easy way to paint something so small. And I want them to coordinate really well with the mushrooms that are on the windows. So I just went ahead and painted these red. I'm also going to go in and add spots to them. I like a mushroom with spots. I think it looks really cute. I'm going to do the same maroon color with this one, and then I'm going to mix it up with a different color for the third one. These were really easy to paint, so don't be afraid to buy the unfinished wood ones. This one I decided to do brown. And I think that's going to be really cute with the color scheme as well and really look cute planted out in the yard. I'm not going to do a lot of plants. I think mushrooms is going to be enough. Now, there was already dots on the mushrooms on the windows, but you couldn't really see them. So I painted those white with a paint pen. Very cute. And then I'm going to go ahead and do white dots on these as well. These are larger mushrooms, so I kind of switched up to a larger paint pen to make it easier to make some little polka dots and just kind of a random pattern all around. I love decorating with mushrooms for so many seasons, but I think fall is definitely my favorite for that. It's just so cute with the forest theme. So I did go over it with a couple coats there on the brown to really make that pop. I do want a little area, like a sidewalk leading to the front door. So I kind of made a path there in my moss and added a little bit of this like pea gravel from the Dollar Tree in white. And then now time for the mushrooms. I'm going to have them kind of be random, gluing them to the wood tray here in the yard, just where I think they would look good. I did a total of 3 since I already had so many mushrooms on the windows. And then I'm also going to add a little bit more of the moss here around the door, but this time switching it up to that browner floral moss. I have an acorn that a nice viewer sent into me, and I am going to add that there to the front yard. And then I found this little bridge at Dollar General. It's covered in moss. I thought this would be really cute. I don't have a lot of room to work back here, but I thought a bridge would add a nice fun aspect to the back of our little pumpkin fairy garden. And I just glue that here on the back. And these pumpkins from the Dollar Tree, they've really started painting these better. These look so much better than some of them do. I'm going to use maybe 2 of these in the yard to go with the pumpkin theme. And here it is, our little fairy garden pumpkin. I love the idea of turning a pumpkin into a fairy garden. I think it can be so cute. And this is the final result. Let me give you a closer look of our pumpkin fairy garden. Very fun, and I think it goes really well with our fantastical forest theme because it mixes together pumpkins, mushrooms for fall, and like fantasy like the fairy. So perfect for this theme, and I think it turned out really cute. What do you guys think about this DIY? We're going to take 3 wood crates from the Dollar Tree. It can really be any of the rectangular ones like that. And then 2 of the Dollar Tree easels. Now, this is how they used to come, but this is how they are coming now. So, like at my store, I found these like on the bottom shelf. They're all taken apart like this, and they have a chain with them now as well. So know that they might look like that at your Dollar Tree. Now, I was challenging myself. I have made a really cute porch swing with these easels from the Dollar Tree, and I was thinking there must be something else I could make for these for spring, and let me show you what I came up with. The first thing I'm going to do is just remove the stand from it. I don't really need that on there, but I do want the structure to stay in place, so I just took that piece of wood off. We will use that later on in the DIY, and I screwed this back on. Now, without that in there, though, I felt like my screw was a little too long sticking out of the back. You could leave it on there like that, but I thought it was a little distracting. So what I'm going to do is just remove the screw and the wing nut, and I'm just going to use hot glue to glue those at the top. It doesn't have to be super strong. I do the same thing there with the other ones, just removing the extra piece of wood and removing the screw. I'm just going to use hot glue to attach them together. And what I want to do is take 2 of these and make a ladder plant stand that I can fill with some faux florals for spring, and I love how this turned out. It's the perfect shape for this. That there's already the ledge there on the bottom, and so that will be able to hold a box of flowers down there, and then I also want a box of flowers at the top. So I can use that extra piece of wood for the top. And basically I want ledges to be able to sit the flower boxes on. So I just used hot glue to glue both of those together. I do want a stain, but I want a very light stain for spring. I don't want it to be too dark. So I mixed mostly water with some antique wax by Waverly, and we're going to stain everything. The wooden easels, the little wooden crate boxes, everything that we're going to be using here, and just letting that soak in a little bit, but wiping off the excess. It looks darker now than it actually ends up. It is a very light stain, but I did want to stain it so that I could get a lot more of that wood grain to come through. Now, this little part of the easel is already attached with like little nails in there, so it's pretty sturdy. I'm guessing on the new ones, I haven't taken them out of the package yet. You'd probably have to be able to screw those on. And the ladder stand that I'm making for this, like the ladder planter stand, you could use shelves in it, and that would be really cute as well. You could add shelves with little flower pots, but what I'm going to do is just add the wood boxes directly and make them into flower boxes just to save a step. But know that you definitely could make this project with shelves if you wanted to. So I just go over the front and the back of all of these, and I love crafting with these little easels. I was trying to decide if I should make like a swing set or something like that, but I've already done a porch swing, so I wanted to mix it up a little bit and do something a little bit more different. Now, these were the extra pieces of wood. I went ahead and stained them as well because I can use them for the shelves for the top. Now, the little wood crates, I just made sure to get 3 all the same. They have many varieties of these. Some of them have open slats on the bottom. Some of them have open slats on the sides. It doesn't really matter as long as you get 3 that are all the same size. And this one doesn't really have the openings, but it does have the slats. Still super cute. I went ahead and stained everything just because it was a little bit like a wash. So it's just easier just to go ahead and stain everything inside and outside of our little wood flower boxes. And again, just kind of drying that off with a dry paper towel. I don't want to take too much of the stain off, but as you can see, a very light stain. And one thing about staining or painting the different kinds of wood like this from the Dollar Tree, it's going to give you a more consistent finish in the end than if you would have left them all just the raw wood colors that they were, because they can vary slightly. So I'm going to do that with all 3 of my boxes. What I was thinking is I can do 1 box for the top shelf, and then I can do 2 together, making a longer flower box for the bottom because I'm going to have more room down there. So I just finished up staining this last one. It's really easy to do. Just kind of go all over. Try not to forget any surfaces. And as you can see, that stain is just very liquid. You can almost pour it right off. Now, this is what I was thinking. One of these will be the front, one will be the back. I'll have 2 rows like this that I can suspend this through, but I'm going to need to make a shelf for the top bin because the one on the bottom is already there. You're going to want to cut your wood to size. You're going to want it about the same width as one of the little bins. And I just kind of marked off where I want to be able to attach this just so I can remember. And instead of using a saw, I'm just going to use my miter scissors to cut these down. They're not too big. I think I should be able to cut them with this. And then I'm going to use that as a reference here to cut off the second one. Now I'm just going to attach these to the wood easel with hot glue. If you wanted to go in with some tinier nails on the other side, it would make it even stronger like the bottom shelf. But I think with faux flowers and foam in this, it's not going to need to be super durable. So what I did was just mark that on the other little A-frame so I would know exactly where to attach these. And I just put hot glue here on each side and add my little wood shelves. So I was thinking that the flower boxes would rest on these, and let me show you how I ended up putting it all together. So I have that glued to both of them, and I want it to be like that. So I want to kind of sandwich the little bends in. Now you're going to want to add a little bit of flexibility. What I did was I hot glued mine to the A-frame here and to the shelf. You really only need to do it on the shelf, because I noticed you did need a little bit of flexibility when I went to put this all together. So I don't know how much it really stuck to the back. The shelf is the most important part. Now for the bottom one, I want it to be a long flower tray. So I took both of them and glued them together end to end like this with some hot glue before I added it to the shelf. This little easel shelf does have a little bit of a ridge on it, so make sure you're making good contact when you glue this on. And again, I glued this one to the frame, but you don't really need to. As long as you get it on that shelf, it should be good to go. And now we can attach the front of our little plant ladder Super cute. I was making sure it was going to fit. That's when I realized I probably shouldn't have glued it to the back because I did need a little bit of flexibility, but we're going to make it work. I add hot glue here to both of these little ridges here that are going to be used to hold the flower boxes, and attach this, gluing that to the little wood crates like that. It's really cute. I love this design. It looks just like a bigger ladder plant stand that you would buy, and it's kind of a miniature version that you can use for decor. You can really use this indoor or outdoor as well. That is what it looks like so far. Now let's fill it up with some floral foam from the Dollar Tree and some of their beautiful spring florals. They have some really pretty stuff this year. This foam was the perfect size, but it didn't fill it up lengthwise. So I just added a whole piece to each box, and then I just cut a half a piece to fill up the box all the way. Now to cover up the foam and add a little bit more decor, I'm just going to take some reindeer moss and spread it all around. Some of the reindeer moss I've been buying lately is a really kind of a bright green, but I think it's really pretty for spring. So I just used one package, scattering that throughout the 3 boxes to fill those up before we add our florals. And now check out this hanging eucalyptus that I just got at the Dollar Tree. I've never seen this before. I love the fact that it's hanging. I thought this would look beautiful on the top flower box because it could dangle down on the front there in front of the stand and be really fun. So this had 4 pieces on it. I thought I was going to end up using more, but 4 was plenty because I really only wanted it to dangle down here in the front. So I just put those along the front, scattering those out, and I love them. Another new spring flora I found are these hydrangeas. Aren't they so pretty? They're like a lavender color. I think they're so pretty. So what I did was just cut these down with my wire cutter so they're not too tall. I did make sure to leave the green leaves on there because I think they're pretty. And I think one bunch of those is enough to fill up one of the flower boxes. I do want to do this all basically the same kind of color scheme. So I'm going to use those same flowers in each one of my boxes. But on the bottom, I'm not going to be doing the eucalyptus. I'm just going to be doing the flowers. That combined with reindeer moss, I think will be enough to fill that up, especially with the leaves on there. So again, I just cut these down, making sure to leave the leaves on and spread these throughout the boxes. And this turned out so pretty. It's pretty lightweight since I'm using the foam and the faux florals like this. I'm going to use mine, I think, inside my home for decor, but I think you could probably get away with this out on a porch as well, as long as it's like not going to get like a lot of wind or anything like that. You wouldn't want your stand to break. But this is how it turned out. My little ladder plant stand, I absolutely love it. I think it looks so beautiful for spring. Aren't those flowers and the greenery so pretty? And combined with that awesome ladder plant stand, I really love this design, and I'm so glad that I came up with it. I think it would be really versatile too, because you could switch out the greenery in it really easily for different seasons. I'm going to be using some of the stackable Easter eggs from Easter this year. I've got lots of extras, especially of the white, because I thought these would be great for crafting. I might make these into strawberries. We will see. I'm hoping to do a strawberry video as well, but I'm going to use the largest one. And then I went through my flower pots from the Dollar Tree and I found one that fit perfectly in there. The only problem is it is blue and I want it to be green. What we're going to do is make that egg into a giant pineapple planter. So I want to be able to have a planter that I can have a like fern-like plant in, but I don't want you to see this teal blue. So I just went in with some green spray paint, and I really only spray painted the top parts where you're going to be able to see it because it's going to be down inside of the Easter egg. And I haven't seen anybody do this, but I thought these giant eggs would be perfect for an Easter egg because it's even got the perfect crosshairs on there for the texture of a pineapple. It was really easy to paint, at least the yellow part. I just took one of the little sponge daubers from the Dollar Tree, the little stencil daubers, and some yellow, bright yellow acrylic paint. And I just kind of dragged that on there, painting each one of the cells yellow. It was actually pretty easy to do. The sponge gave it a really great texture. I did flip it over and make sure that I got the very bottom part. But isn't this like even kind of shaped like a pineapple? I thought it would be perfect for that. For the top part, I'm going to try to make this look as finished as I can. It does have the little area where the next egg pops on it. I just added some more yellow paint up here. It does have a little bit of a groove where it pops in. And so I did use a brush to try to kind of get in there a little bit. But otherwise, this is just going to hold the flower pot. And actually, we're trying to grow some pineapple using some local pineapples. And I might have to switch it up to this pot. That would be really fun. Now for the crosshairs, I just took my brown paint pen and I drew on the little raised area. This took a little bit of time. I did find that I really only had to do like kind of one section at a time, but I did find it easier to just continue that line all the way on. And I'm trying to be really careful because the dark brown color against the yellow, I don't want to mess that up. And, if you wanted to do your pineapple, pineapples can be yellow, like our local pineapples are yellow when they are ripe, but sometimes when you get them from the store, they're a little bit more brown, so you can kind of make your pineapple whatever color you want. But I wanted mine to be bright and cheerful for summer. That's why I wanted it to be a bright yellow. And so I just went all the way around. I found that it was a little bit easier to kind of work in a direction against the paint pen, so it would have a chance to dry by the time I got over here. I want to make sure that I don't smear any of that, and I did all of my lines going in one direction. Then I'm going to kind of flip it around and go the other way. I'm using my Posca paint pens. These are fantastic, and I thought this brown color would be really fun. I thought about trying to distress it a little bit to try to get the little raised crosshairs like this just to be a little bit brown, but I really wanted to keep most of my pineapple really bright and yellow, so I think just the yellow and the brown. It also has room in the diamond that's created there to be able to do, I was thinking about doing like almost like a little X or a plus sign in there with the brown paint pen too, to give that really fun pineapple design, but I wasn't sure if I would like it, and so I really kind of left it just like this because I really think this looks really bright and cheerful and really fun. I think I'm going to be putting this out on my porch for summer. I think this is going to be really fun out there. And it turned out really large using this giant egg from the Dollar Tree. And I love those stackable eggs. I've made so many fun things with them. So I went all the way over all of them like that. Now the pattern does kind of stop about right here, which doesn't really make sense for a pineapple. So I'm going to continue that top line on, just going up here to the ridge of the lid. And I did, just like before, I did one direction first and then went back the other direction. And for this one, it was really easy. I was just, connecting the two lines together to finish that out, to finish that great pineapple design on all of it. And doesn't that look so cool? I love DIYing pineapples. I think they're so pretty and delicious. We have some local ones right now that are so good. So the flower pot fits in there perfectly. I'm going to fill it up with some foam from the Dollar Tree and a fern plant that I actually got on Temu. Now you could use the fern plants or really any of the greenery from the Dollar Tree for the top of your pineapple. I wanted a big fern since this is kind of a big planter, and I've been trying to find some other sources for florals since Dollar Tree is really going up on them. And I think these were really cool. They come in a 2-pack. I just kind of cut my foam into little pieces until I had enough to fill up the flower pot. And then to cover the foam, I'm going to use some of that green floral moss from the Dollar Tree. I definitely wanted something green for this part. And then it's time to add the fern plant. I can't remember how much these were. I'll have to see if I can look it up on Temu. You get 2 of them in a package, and it's a really nice fern and really large. So I put that right in the middle of my foam, kind of all the way down to the flower pot, and there is a wire in these. It's not a super strong one, but it's enough to shape them. And I kind of spread out some of my bigger pieces of fern first. I wanted to see if I could just use one of these for this DIY, and it was definitely big enough. So it was another source. I mean, we're probably going to have to find some other sources for florals with the price increase at the Dollar Tree, because some of those florals from the Dollar Tree are really not worth $1.75. Now it's time to put this back into the egg. This project is so big, I can't really show you on this camera how it turned out, So I will show you here in the final reveal of how fun this little pineapple planter turned out. I think the Easter egg is a perfect pineapple. The shape is perfect. And the fact that it has that design on there, which I really don't like in the Easter egg part of it, but it works perfectly for a pineapple. Isn't that really bright and fun? I really love this, and I think it's going to be a fun decor piece for summertime. So let's get started with my coffee bar first. Check out this cool sign I got at Salvation Army the other day. They had 50% off the entire store on Labor Day. And so I got this for like $2.50. Really nice big board sign. And I'm going to try to create a custom coffee bar sign with this. I love the fact that it's slatted wood. It did cause me a little bit more work for this project than I initially thought, but we're going to make it work. The first thing I need to do is paint over all the writing. Anytime you have a dark sign like this and it has white writing on it, you really have to mask that, because if you're going to decoupage over this, you're going to be able to read that through. So I just went over first with a very thin coat of white paint on all of the boards, trying to make sure that I didn't get any in the cracks between the boards. Then I went over it with a heavier coat here to start to mask this. My plan for this sign is to display it on my top shelf of my coffee bar. My coffee bar in my house, if you don't know, I just took 2 floating shelves from Target and I put it on a wall near my kitchen over an armoire that I DIY'd that I got at Goodwill, and I love it. It's my favorite place in the kitchen. And so I love to decorate it, but you could always use a lot of these ideas in your kitchen or wherever you want to decorate. Now I got that all painted, so this is what I'm going to decoupage it with. Fall napkins from Dollar General. They were $2. They have a very similar print one at Dollar Tree with just fall leaves. This one also had like acorns on it. I think it's really pretty. And then I designed this printable. How cute is this? A bear drinking a cup of coffee. And I also did it in a fall theme. I just printed mine out on cardstock, and I will share the free printable with you in the description of today's video. Now for the napkin, I need it to be 1 layer. I thought I was going to need 2 since it's such a big sign, but the napkins were actually really big once you unfolded them. And so I just have 1 layer. There is a little bit of writing on the napkin, so I made sure to put that at the bottom where it won't be on the sign. And I'm going to cover the entire board sign with a very thin coat of Mod Podge. You definitely don't want to do thick coats, especially when you're decoupaging something as delicate as a napkin. And so I just went over it just very thin, but I wanted it even all over the sign. And then I'm going to lay this on, overlapping the sides with my napkin and making sure my hands were really dry. I'm just kind of smoothing that out. You can also use like a dry paper towel or like plastic wrap to kind of spread that out. You want to make sure that you get all of it glued down without any bubbles, but you also want to try to do it without tearing it if possible. It is very delicate. Then once I got that dry, I just went around all of the edges of my sign with a sanding sponge, and that gives you the perfect cut. You have to be pretty careful on this step too. Just take it easy, be very gentle with it. You don't want to rip any edges that you won't be able to repair. If you do rip it a little bit, you can always just Mod Podge it back down and it will be fine. And so I have it all on here. I'm going to go over the top of it with another very thin coat of Mod Podge. I often don't do the top part with Mod Podge, but I did do it on this sign just because I really wanted to be able to cut between all the board signs, and I wanted to make sure everything was good and attached and kind of dried on there. So I went over it with a very thin coat again. Some of it wanted to bubble up, but when I dried it, it did lay back down. And then this was kind of the tricky part of my DIY, was using my razor blade to cut between the board signs, because it's really hard to get the paper out in between. As you can see, the slatted board sign, the boards are really close together. So I think it was very important, especially on the decoupage step, to do that with this board sign. But if you had just a square sign that isn't a board sign like this, you wouldn't have to do this step, and that would be a lot easier. I found that if I cut it with my razor blade and then tried to glue it down into the crack with just my fingernail, like sliding that across, it did help. And also I use like that Cricut little weeder too, helped a little bit, but you have to be careful with that because again, that thin napkin can definitely tear. So I cut between all the board signs, and then I'm going to attach my bear. I printed this out. I think I printed it out at 97%. I will share the link to this. I had to print it out 97% because my printer doesn't do like edge to edge. But again, I just printed it out on cardstock, which is going to make it so much easier to decoupage on here, and it's going to not be see-through, so you won't be able to see the leaf pattern through it. And so I just cut it out with a pair of scissors. And I love him. He's so cute. He's looking straight at you, drinking a cup of coffee with some fall leaves. So I think he's going to be really fun on the top of my coffee bar for the fall. I found the cutest things at Dollar Tree that inspired me to do a woodland fall theme for my coffee bar, and I can't wait to show you all of those. Now, I decided to do the bear on different boards, cutting each piece. So I glued it on my first board, and then I cut it out with my razor blade. Now, I did this because I had cut all of the napkins, for the individual boards before. I thought it would look really cool to do that with the bear too. Kind of regret doing it because it was harder than I thought. Maybe if I would have cut the slices of the bear with my paper cutter, maybe I could have got some straighter lines. It might have been easier to cut. But I had a little tough time like getting the cuts perfect on this and making sure that I don't have like any paper trapped in between the boards. But I had already started it, so I'm going to continue that way. I just added Mod Podge, laid on my bear, and then cut here in between the boards with my razor blade, making sure everything was glued down. And I think he's so cute. He would look really cute on any kind of background if you wanted to DIY with him for your kitchen for fall. I wanted to do lots of different animals like bears, foxes, squirrels, that kind of thing for my coffee bar. And I also have a fall tier tray today. Haven't done a tier tray in a while. And so I definitely wanted to bring you a new fall tier tray as well. And we're going to do the same thing for it too, the same theme, because I'm going to display it in my kitchen. So I went all the way up. Every single board has a piece of the bear now. But again, I did have to kind of clean up some of the paper. Some of it didn't cut perfectly, like the area like right here underneath the bear's head. And so I do end up with like a little bit of area there that doesn't have any of the bear. So I'm going to have to touch that up a little bit because it was a little bit more distressed than I wanted. But I tried to trim the paper up the best that I could and make sure everything was glued down. So since it was brown, I just went in there with a little brown paint and tried to disguise this the best that I can right here on the different boards. So that's one reason why I regretted doing it. I could have just left it all one piece. It would have been easier, but it didn't turn out pretty cute in the end. Now that I have it all cut and repaired, I'm going to seal the bear with some more Mod Podge here on top, trying to dry that. Once it dries, I was able to get rid of any of the bubbling in there and make sure that it lays flat. This is how it turned out, and this is how it looks on the top shelf of my coffee bar. I think he's so precious. What do you guys think about my little bear drinking coffee? Very fun. And I decided at first to lean it against the wall like that. I do end up hanging it. You will see here in a minute. But for right now, I started out with just a leaner sign here on the top. And this is how I did my fall coffee bar using the Woodland Animals theme. One of my very favorite for fall, and Dollar Tree had lots of fun finds this year, like the little raccoon plate and the dishes, the different fabrics I used and stuff like that, even the coffee cups. This was such a fun theme to do, and I'm really glad that you guys enjoyed these DIYs. I wanted to see if I could turn one of the Dollar Tree wood trays into a flower cart. I thought it would be a really fun challenge, and so I'm going to use one of the new wood easel kits from the Dollar Tree for extra wood. If you can't find these little kits, you could always use Jenga blocks or other craft wood. I really like them though. Now for the outside of my tray, I decided to take some of the medium size popsicle sticks. These are the ones from Walmart, and they're a little bit longer and wider than the ones from the Dollar Tree, and it will cover the entire side. I thought we could do like a slatted board on the side to give it just a little bit more texture and to also cover the handles on the end. Now, this step is totally optional, and if I were to make it again, I don't know if I would include them because when I went to stain it, they did warp a little bit, being this thin wood, but not too bad. I just cut them down to size. I want them to be like two, like that, where they're kind of staggered to make it look like a wood crate and to slightly be taller than the tray. This would also be a good option if you can only find the ones with like the star cutouts or the heart cutouts or something like that, and you don't want to be able to see the handles at all. But the regular handles really aren't that distracting. I just kind of wanted the textured surface of the wood. So I'm just cutting those down. I'm just using scissors and hot glue. I did the ends first, and then we will do the sides. And the reason, again, I use these larger ones from Walmart is because they were as long as the tray. I don't think Dollar Tree, I know Dollar Tree has a couple sizes of popsicle sticks. I get like the small and I guess the medium. And but Walmart has like these large ones, and they also have jumbo ones which are really big, which are great for crafting. So whenever I do go to Walmart, I always try to pick those up. So I cut down enough for all four sides. What I was thinking is that this is going to be where the flowers are on my flower cart, and I can attach legs. That's where the easel kit comes in handy. Now there's two pieces that are slanted that go together to make the easel, and then there's one piece that's the easel stand, and they all seem to be about the same size wood. And I thought these would be coming handy for crafting, so I keep picking these up, these little easel kits from the Dollar Tree. I just kind of estimated how long I wanted my leg to be. I don't know. I didn't really measure it. It's maybe about 3 inches. And I'm going to cut out two. I love using my miter scissors. I got these on Amazon. I think I have them listed in my Amazon shop in the description of today's video. I probably need to get some new blades though, because the Florida humidity out my garage is rusting those, right? And then for the tires, I'm going to use some of the wood rings from the Dollar Tree. These are the little wood craft rings. I wasn't sure what size I would need, but I decided to go with this larger one for 2 wheels. Anything round is really going to work for a wheel. If you have any like wood circles made out of craft wood, I've even used like the little shape puzzles from the toy aisle at the Dollar Tree for circles, but I thought the wood rings would be perfect. So the front legs need to be shorter. So I kind of lined it all up there to see how long I would need those legs to be to center those on my little DIY wheels. Now, this is a fun crafting find. These are actually coffee stirrers. I ordered these from my coffee bar. You get like 1,000 of them from Amazon. So I've linked these in my Amazon shop as well as a crafting supplies because they came in really handy for these. As you can see, they're little teeny tiny pieces of wood. I'm going to cut out 3 for each one. The reason I wanted these instead of like skewers from the Dollar Tree is that they're flat. So I will be able to stack these on top of each other, and they're so thin that they're not going to interfere with my design. So I take my wood ring and I just glue it on both sides with just a tiny dot of hot glue, and then I glue another one on it, forming an X, and then a third one. Since they are so thin, you can almost mold them a little bit so they'll bend slightly and they'll stack perfectly to make a little wheel in it. I think it turned out really cute. It was really easy to do. And I had bought those coffee stirrers, and I don't really like them that much for coffee stirrers, but when I also had the other motive that they'd probably be a cool craft supply, and I think they are, so I'm definitely putting these in my crafting stash. I do the same thing here for a tire for the other side. And then now it's time to put our legs on our flower cart. I'm just going to attach them with hot glue. I just made sure to use my Gorilla Glue hot glue, let that set up. If you want it to be a little stronger, you could use wood glue if you wanted, but I was trying to get my flower cart made, so I used hot glue, and it seems strong enough. I did put extra hot glue on the inside there where you're not really going to be able to see it to reinforce it a little bit. And then these are the shorter legs. These are the ones I cut a little bit shorter for the wheels, and I glued those on the 4 corners. So I'm almost building like a table at this point. Now, if you wanted to put a shelf down here, like some flower carts have shelves down there, you totally could, and it might actually reinforce your project a little bit as far as the legs go. I'm not going to put a shelf down there though. I'm just going to go ahead and attach my tires. I was trying to figure out how to do this in a way that would level it out. So I'm using just an extra piece of wood just for a straight line here to try to figure out exactly where I want my tire to be. And I just glued my little DIY wheel to the little wood. I'm gonna reinforce it with a little bit more hot glue here on the back. And then I'm gonna glue the other one on the other side where everything will hopefully lay level. This is what it looks like so far. I think it's really coming along. It's starting to look like a flower cart, right? I got this idea by seeing the large ones that they sell, like the real life ones on Wayfair. And I was like, oh, yeah, I want to make a miniature flower cart. I think that'd be really cool. So this is another piece of that easel kit. And I'm going to cut down 2 pieces to be the sides of my sign here. Like a lot of flower carts, there's a couple different styles. They can come up and have like a roof. They can come up and have a roof with a shelf up there, or they can just come up and have a sign. So I'm going to make mine have a sign. So I cut these down the same size and I'm just gluing them on the inside of my wood tray there, one on each side, straight across from each other. And then another piece of that same easel kit for the top beam. And using this in combination with the miter scissors, huge fan for crafting. It made this really easy without having to go back and forth to my saw all the time. So I just attached that with hot glue there. And this is going to be my sign holder. So this is what my flower cart looks like so far. I did think it needed some handles to push it around. So kind of like wheelbarrow handles, right? Like you're just going to need little handles here. And so again, I'm using that same wood. And I'm going to cut 2 small handles here. And I really kind of like the square of this wood from the easel kit compared to like the wood dowels from the Dollar Tree, because square can really give you a different look on projects like this. I am going to attach that with hot glue to my top popsicle stick there. And my biggest challenge with this project was like letting my glue set up because I want everything to be as strong as possible. For this sign, you just need something wood. I'm going to use a Dollar Tree wood ruler. I think it makes a great sign. Nice and big and strong. You could also use a popsicle stick as well, but I kind of wanted the thicker wood. If you had like a paint stirrer, that would be pretty equivalent. I just cut mine down to size there on the saw to make a little sign. And then I'm going to spell out the word flowers. I'm going to use the galvanized metal letters from the Dollar Tree. Be careful when you buy these. You only get about half the alphabet, I guess, there. And I haven't been able to find the wood ones lately, but these are the perfect size for this scale project. So I'm going to spell out the word flowers. I went back and forth whether I was going to leave these galvanized metal or paint them. At first I left them galvanized metal, so you'll get to see that, but I do go back and distress them with white just to make it a little bit easier to read. My house doesn't have the best lighting, so sometimes the metal's a little kind of hard to read, especially like on a stained wood. I just use as little hot glue as possible when putting these on so I don't get a lot of that seeping out, and they fit perfectly on this size project. So there's our little flower sign. As you can see, I'm attaching everything before I stain it or paint it or anything like that. It's just going to make the wood to wood hot gluing stronger. Then to stain it, I wanted my stain to be a lighter wood stain, and so I mixed some Antique Wax by Waverly with water to make a wash. This is what caused problems with my popsicle sticks. I think it was so watery that it bowed them a tiny bit. It's not super noticeable, and it actually makes it look more rustic because I am going to distress it and make it look rustic anyway. But keep that in mind if you're going to be using like a watery wash like I am. Sometimes on a project like this where there's so many different things to paint or stain, I find a wash is easier because, as you can see, it just kind of soaks it in. You don't have to get it on there just perfectly or anything like that. But I went over everything, all the legs, the wheels, the bottom of the tray, and the sides of our sign. And I really love this project. I've created so many different things with wood, miniature projects like this. And I'm always looking for a challenge or a new idea of something to make. And I just think this turned out so fun. So I got everything stained, and now we can fill it up with flowers. I don't have a lot of room, so what I'm going to do is take the floral foam from the Dollar Tree, just cut it in half. So I have one piece that's pretty thin, and then trim that down to size as well, and just lay that right in there. I'm also going to glue that in place so that all the flowers kind of stay put in our little flower stand. To cover up the foam so you don't really see that, I just add some of the reindeer moss from the Dollar Tree into the tray. Not too much, but just a good layer, and this is what it looks like so far. For the flowers, I tried to choose smaller ones, so I have these in the white and the pink. And they come in little bunches, so I thought that would be perfect for flower sales, like a little bouquet. So I just pulled those off and put those down into the floral foam. And I was going with pink, whites, and purples on this one. So I also had them in the soft pink color, just kind of scattering those around, kind of random. And then the baby's breath from the Dollar Tree always works well because these are little tiny flowers. These you have to cut. And I found them in like pink and white, and I am also going to be adding some of this like summer filler. They have like these pink berries. I thought that would be just a fun little touch in there to make some of the flowers look a little bit more wild and add some more greenery in there as well. So first I did the berries, but I like the ferns and the greenery too. So I thought that would make it look a little bit more exotic with our flowers. And so I just cut those all apart and added those to the floral foam as well. And then I also have some of the lavender from the Dollar Tree to add a couple touches of purple. I thought that would be cute. So I just cut those with my wire cutter and add those as well. I want our flower cart to be really full with spring flowers. And this is such a fun idea. A little bit different take on a planter or a tier tray or something you would have sitting around. I think that's enough. I don't think I even need the white baby's breath. It is pretty full. So this is what it looks like so far with the silver letters and the stained wood, the lightly stained wood. But I am going to distress it. I do that with some white acrylic and a makeup sponge, and I'm just going to drag that across my metal letters to paint them in a distressed fashion, just because I thought it would make it a little bit easier to read, but I kind of liked the distressed look. I wanted this to look like an old flower cart. So I actually distressed all over, just using that makeup sponge, a baby wipe to blend off any of the excess. But this step is totally optional, whatever your preference is for finish. I was going for a very rustic and old looking flower cart, and I think it did add a lot of character to this project and made it look not so brand new. And this is how it turned out, our little flower cart. I think it is adorable. Let me give you a closer look of our little flower cart. So I used one easel kit, one wood tray, the wood rings, and some popsicle sticks, and a wood ruler, I guess, for the wood. I think that's all. Oh, yeah, the coffee stirrers as well. Isn't that fun? I want to make an indoor pink flamingo. I guess you could also use this on a porch, but what I want to do is make this little pink flamingo into a succulent planter using one of the Dollar Tree like chunky wood signs as the base. I think that will be heavy enough. So I'm going to simply cut an opening in the top of it to make it into a little planter. The plastic on these pink flamingos from the Dollar Tree is really thin, so it's really easy to cut. I have the best luck using a razor blade, and I just cut like a little rectangular shape. I don't want it to be too big. It's not going to require a lot to add some succulents to it. And it doesn't have to be perfect, but I just kind of have the shape that I think is going to work for that. And I also want it to be open because it's going to help me attach the legs. I'm going to replace the wire legs that came with the pink flamingo with some of the wood dowels from the Dollar Tree, attempting to make it stronger to be able to act as a planter. And I think I'm going to be actually using this as a centerpiece, but you could really use this on your porch. You could use it on shelf decor. It turned out so cute. So for the legs, normally they're side by side like that and they have the wires that go out, but they're really not that stable. So I'm going to try to replace it. I just poked two more holes to kind of make them go right there on the seam of the pink flamingo. And I'm just going to paint the wood dowels pink. Now, these are not very long, but I think they're going to be long enough for this project. I'm not going to try to do a knee or anything on this. I really just want some stability to hold the whole thing together. So I just painted a bright magenta pink color. I have looked at pink flamingo legs because there are all different kinds of pink flamingos, and some of them have pink legs, some of them have orange legs. I think they kind of vary depending on what kind of species of flamingo they are. I do like the way that the color that these are, but I thought I would update mine slightly. So I'm taking that same magenta paint color and I am just going all over. I'm not covering everything, but I want it to be different colors of pink. So I put that on the back of the pink flamingo, wiping off any excess with a paper towel. And it's just kind of brightening up a little bit. I'm just trying to be careful not to get any on the eyes and the beak there. I want to leave those. I think those are painted fine. So I just wipe that off if I get any on there. And it added a little bit more punch to the pink. But I'm also going to go over it and distress it a little bit more with some white added to that magenta to give me another shade of pink too, because it has this like really cool texture on there that can be brought out, that feather print. And I'm just using one of those little sponge stencil daubers from the Dollar Tree and dragging that all over to distress my penguin. And one reason I'm doing this is because I want to use this as a centerpiece, I think, for my kitchen table, that it's going to make it look a little bit more like a planter or sculpture and less like plastic. You know, the pink is all one color, it's kind of uniform. And so this is what it looks like with a couple different colors added to it. I really like that effect. Now to put the legs together, I really want this to be stronger than the metal legs that come with it. So I'm going to have to find a way to drill into the sign, but first I want to cover it with some faux grass. This is the faux grass from the Easter aisle at Dollar Tree the past couple years. I love it. I'm just going to cut out a rectangular shape, slightly bigger than my sign because there is like a black matting on this that can sometimes show along the edges, and simply cut that out. It's going to give me a faux grass look that makes the pink flamingo look like it's standing in somebody's lawn, which I absolutely love. So once I get that cut out, I go in and try to cut off the excess black parts here from the side, as you can see. That's why you have to cut it a little bit larger than you need. And then I'm simply going to just glue this onto the wood sign. When I drill the holes for the flamingo legs, I'll just have to try to find a way to go through the grass as well, because I really want that to be attached and covering the entire base of the flamingo centerpiece. Now, as far as the legs, I cut little holes with my Cricut weeder, and I'm going back in with a razor blade to cut a couple slits on it. I want it to be really tight. I don't want to cut it too big, but I did find that you do have to kind of cut like an X pattern to make that work, and that is what I did, where I can put the legs in. And since I have the top cut open, I can glue it from the inside. So I add my leg and then add hot glue there on top to start gluing that in place. And I do glue it a couple of times to try to make it really strong, and I'm really impressed with how it turned out. It's probably the most stable pink flamingo DIY I've ever made. But I just added the second leg, and I'm adding hot glue to that too. I'm adding a lot of hot glue in there. And I'm going to kind of set that aside, let that sit up. I do want it to kind of go out different ways like that. I think that adds to the pink flamingo look and will look really cute here on the base of the sign. Now, as far as the base of the sign, I do need to drill some holes. I'm using my largest drill bit and my power drill to drill a couple holes. I did have a little bit of trouble going through the grass, but I was able to get it through there. And it cut it, but you can't really see the opening too much. So I just went back in there with just like an ink pen to open that up a little bit so I can actually see where I need to get the wood dowel into it. And I just drilled a hole there for both legs. Now, I did want to make sure that it is really sturdy, so I went ahead and hot glued here on the outside. Not real obvious amount of hot glue, just kind of on the back side there. And I added more hot glue on the inside as well, letting that sit up too, because again, I want that to be as sturdy as I can get it. And I also want this to be really tight. So I'm going to go ahead and use another one of the wood dowels to try to make sure that I have my holes drilled properly before I go to put this together. So I just use a hammer and kind of force those in. I do want it to be really snug. And it seems like I got the right size, so I just add a little hot glue to each one of the holes to help hold it in there as well, and simply put my wood dowels inside. And I think I finally have it stable enough. I think it's going to do a lot better than the metal legs for sure. Now to fill up the planter part, I'm just using foam, and the inside of the flamingo is a lot larger than the opening, so I do just have to kind of cut it down into pieces. I just want enough foam to be added where my succulents are going to stay in place. and I want to try to fill it up as much as I can. So I just cut it down into little pieces and add them separately. I'm going to be adding 3 different succulents. 2 of them are from the Dollar Tree and one I got at Dollar General the other day. They're actually cheaper at Dollar General. They're only $1, and I kind of like the fact that their stems are smaller because as you can see, these Dollar Tree ones have some like really large stems on there. Makes it a little bit difficult to get it down inside the foam like that, but I want the taller piece towards the back and the smaller ones in the front. So this is one of the ones I got at Dollar General. Isn't that cute? I love the way it looks and feels. I just went ahead and added that to the pink flamingo as well. And then I finish it off with just a little bit of Spanish moss anywhere where there might be a gap, just to make sure you can't see any foam. And I really like the effect that gives too. But this is how it turned out, my little pink flamingo planter DIY. Again, I'm going to use mine as a centerpiece, but I think this would be really cute summer shelf decor, or even for your front porch. I think it would be fine out there as well. Isn't that so cute? I really love it. I'm glad that I added the colors to the pink flamingo. I think that really adds to it. And the legs are really cute as well. My son thought I should add like one of the little fence signs behind it to make it look like it is in a yard and there's a fence in the yard. Okay, the next DIY I picked up just a sign from the Dollar Tree. It can be anything. I just needed something with an opening. And I also picked up some great fall fabrics from the Dollar Tree. Now you can use felt for this. I found these cool fabrics, so I designed my own little pattern, and we're gonna make a fun fall quail DIY. So I designed this pattern, and I scanned it in, so I will include a link to this as well if you want to recreate. And I tried to write on them what color they should be. So for the orange, I'm gonna use an orange plaid material, and that is going to be the wing of the quail. That is really gonna be the only thing I'm doing with this orange plaid fabric. It's kind of a fuzzy fabric. It's really pretty. But again, if you wanted to recreate yours with just the standard color like felts from the Dollar Tree, that was my first idea. I'm going to take my template. I just cut it out of cardstock, and I've decided to double most of the things up to make them a little bit more substantial, and I can slightly stuff them as well for this display. I wanted to make a shadow box with a fall quail in there with some babies. I thought that would be really cute, a little nest. And so I just doubled up my fabric and had it back to back so I could cut out like a mirror image of each one. And I can put that together to be the wing for the quail. I keep wanting to call it a pheasant. It's quail. And I'm going to stuff it with just cotton balls. I needed some stuffing that was really small, and so I picked up some cotton balls from the Dollar Tree for crafting, and they work really well for this. I just glue the wing together, leaving open a pocket that I can stuff it. I don't want to stuff it a lot. I just want to give it a little bit of a 3D vibe, and so it's not super flat. And again, I am going to double up most of the items. I just think it made it look a little bit better in the final diorama. Now for the next part is going to be the brown part. So this is going to be part of the quail and its tail as well as a little tail feather. So again, I just cut out my little template piece. This is going to go around the head, and then I am going to cut out the tail piece, and I want to cut this out of this brown fuzzy fabric. I think this is so pretty. I kind of wish I would have done brown felt on this though. It would have been a little bit easier to cut. I was trying to get kind of an intricate design there on the neck, but it was really kind of hard to cut this in an intricate pattern because it's like that velvety material, but I was able to make it work. I just laid my pattern here on the back of the fabric, and I just used an ink pen to kind of sketch it out. And again, I'm going to be doubling that up as well, and also the tail feather. I wanted these pieces to be separate. I couldn't find a template for something that I wanted to do this, and so I had to like get out the marker and draw my own pattern. But I really love how this project turned out. And again, I will share the printable. I have it where it'll print out on 2 sheets like that, so you can make your own little pattern here to recreate. So again, I cut out 2 of the tail feather, and then I'm going to cut out 2 of this bird piece cover. This is going to cover like most of the quail, but it's also going to have like a belly that's going to be like a little bit of a different color. So This one was where it was a little bit hard to cut this because I had to cut it kind of thin here. I think felt would have been a little bit stiffer, and it would give you the same effect because this is just kind of a brown plush fabric. It's not quite as cool as the next fabric that we're going to be using, which is really cool. Now to go ahead and put this together, I'm going to go ahead and glue the tail together. Just a very short little tail feather here. Don't have a lot of room for stuffing in here, but maybe I'll work in a little tiny bit of plush there in the tail feather. And then same as the other one, I'm going to put plush sides on the outside and glue this together. This upper area here is too small to kind of stuff with anything, so I just glued that part completely shut, but I can add some stuffing when I do the rest, and just trying to add a little bit of stuffing as I go and hot glue this together. This was such a fun DIY. I really wanted to make a fall quail DIY, but I couldn't think of anything I could use from the Dollar Tree that would look anything like a quail. So we had to get creative and use Dollar Tree supplies to make our very own. So that is the brown components. And then this is going to be the things I need that are tan. And I found this tan fabric. It is also fuzzy and it's got like little spots on it. Now, if you can't find this, you could also use like an ivory or a tan felt. I think that would look really cute too. But I love the spots, especially for a bird. I think that's really cute. This larger part here is most of the bird body. This is the mama bird, the mama quail, and then I'm also going to do babies. Now, I went ahead and designed 3, so you can do up to 3, but then I kind of remembered, I'm just making a pattern, so I really only need to cut one of these out. I can just reuse it. So these 2 parts are going to make up a baby bird. So again, I'm just laying that on the back of my tan and white spotted fabric like that. I'm going to go ahead and cut out a piece large enough to double that one up. I really love that fabric. I might use that more for some fall crafting because I've been doing some deer crafting and stuff like that. That would make perfect like fawn spots. And I just sketch out the shape of the bird. And again, I'm going to cut it out double. I'm not worrying about pinning anything. I'm just trying to, we got things to do. We got crafts to make here. So I cut out that part, and then for the baby birds, I'm going to do kind of the same thing. At first, I thought I was going to do 3 baby birds because I like to work with odd numbers. But then I started looking at the size of my box and thinking, I probably can't fit 3 baby birds, and I'm glad I didn't make 3 baby birds because they wouldn't have fit. But I did go ahead and kind of sketch them out here, leaving enough room to double everything up. And again, I'm just going to go in here and cut out 2 of everything. And it's really important to, kind of mirror them like that, fold them so they will be a mirror image of each other so they will match up perfectly when you go to put them together. The baby bird design is so easy. It's just like an 8 design or a little 2-piece snowman kind of. And then I have the other piece there that's going to be the wing. This is when I decided that 2 baby birds was probably enough. So I just cut out 2 of these. And then I'm also going to cut out the little feathers for the babies. I doubled up the little wings here, but I really only needed 1 in the end because I didn't really need to stuff that part. But for our 2 little baby birds, I'm going to do the same thing. I'm just going to try to glue them together. And this was probably the most time-consuming project out of my new DIYs today, but you know what? It was really fun to make, and I love the finished result. So I just glue that together, leaving a tiny pocket and adding the cotton balls. The cotton balls worked great for this because it just gave them a little bit of stuffing, made them look plush, even though, I'm not doing any sewing or anything like that. So it's definitely my kind of crafting. And I am going to glue this one together and stuff him as well. Super cute. He's only going to need like an eye and a beak to finish off the baby. And again, the wings, I really don't need them to be stuffed at all because the baby birds are so small. So I'm just going to glue them on where they will kind of, just be attached by like a little tiny part here at the top. And have that go out to the side. And I'm going to do that with both of these. Isn't that fabric so cute? When I saw this fabric, I knew I had to make some kind of fall forest. And now this is going to be the mama bird. and the brown part is going to overlap some of this. So I went ahead and put this together, put a little bit of cotton in there, and glued this shut. Again, I don't want it to be super thick, but just enough to have a 3D effect. And then we can put the brown part of the bird on. It's going to fit right there where it kind of matches up here on the back side. I didn't want to do too intricate of a design for the fall quail, but I wanted a fun enough design that you're going to be able to tell what kind of bird it is here in the end. And there's a few distinguishing features of quail that will make that stand out. And then also the tail feather, I'm just going to add that separately. Hot gluing this here so it looks like there's like feathers on top of tail feathers. And then here is that little orange plaid wing where we're going to have the little scalloped edge go down like that. And I just attached that with a little bit of hot glue as well. And our little quail are coming right along. For the black part, I'm going to cut out like a wing, a little bit of face design here for the mama bird. It also has that cool, I think they call it a top knot, which is the feather on the top of the quail head, which is a really fun distinguishing feature. So I'm going to cut this out, and I'm just using felt for this one. And this is going to be the beak. It's going to go like that and kind of go down underneath the beak a little bit. This is that cool top net feather that I was talking about. That's going to be kind of coming out of the top of its head. I'm going to cut that out of the black felt as well. And then I'm also going to do some tiny triangles for the beaks for the little baby quail. And I did put them on my little pattern, but really just for size comparison, it's really easy to cut out a little tiny triangle. I just wanted to kind of get the scale right and just cut out 2 little black triangles for the beaks for the baby birds. Then for the eyes, I decided to use like the little beaded stickers from the Dollar Tree. I'm going to use one for the mama bird because it's a larger. I had some blue ones. I just painted mine black. These make a great size for an eye. And then I'm going to glue on the little beak to our quail. And then this is the little top knot feather we can have coming out of the top of its head. And it kind of curves towards the front like that. And then I'm going to glue on the little eye that we painted black. Since the baby birds are smaller, I'm going to try to make their eyes smaller just so it'll be a little bit more to scale. You could always use felt to cut out a tiny eye as well, but it's kind of hard to cut out a tiny circle in felt. I just glued on the little beaks, and I had some of these jewel border letters from the Dollar Tree, and they're just kind of like the other, but they're way smaller. So peel and stick sticker, so perfect. So I added 2 little eyes for our babies. Now let's get started on that fall shadow box. It doesn't really matter what sign you use. I wanted a square sign, and so I just picked up whatever I could find at Dollar Tree. I don't want it to say pumpkin pie on the back of it though, so I'm going to cover it with like a wood grain cheap contact paper just so the back of my project will look nice. I am fine with the sides of the sign being white. I think that will look fine. I'm just going to smooth this out and then simply use a sanding sponge. This contact paper from the Dollar Tree is so cheap, it's really easy to cut with the sandpaper, and it just gave me a perfect cut. And now the back of my project is going to look nice too, because we are going to fill the inside of it and make it into a shadow box. We're also going to be framing it out. For the back, I want it to be covered just with like mossy material. So I just used tacky glue all over. And then for the moss, I'm going to be using the brown floral moss from the Dollar Tree. It's like a little bit different than the reindeer moss. As you can see, it just kind of crumbles into pieces, which is why I added glue everywhere so I can just kind of glue this down for a fun fall background. And it's okay if you see a little bit of the brown come through. And then for greenery, I guess I'm going to use some pampas grass. I like this color. I thought it looked like something that might be a fun fall background for a quail. I'm just going to cut these down where they will fit in our little shadow box. And I think 2 of these would be fine. The orange one would probably be cute too. They have these in fall colors as well. And then I'm just going to attach them with hot glue, and we're just going to try to make a real easy background. And for that, I thought fall leaves would be perfect. So I picked up these, they kind of traditional colors. I want to switch it up and use like one of each. So there's like a red, there's an orange, we got a brown, and I think 4 of them should be enough. And I kind of like the pampas grass a little bit better, so I'm going to have that kind of be on top, I think, and then have like the fall leaves kind of nesting inside there. And again, I am going to frame that out, so the frame's going to look a little bit better here in the end. So I want to make sure to keep everything inside the box because I don't need anything to be getting in the way of the frame we're going to DIY. And now we can have our mama quail and our little baby quail here off to the side. And I want it to look like they're all sitting in a nest. So I just took some Spanish moss. I've been having trouble finding that at Dollar Tree. So I've been having to get that at Walmart lately. And I just took a little bit to make a nest size shape. And I'm also going to be adding rope to that to really kind of give it that fun nest-like feel. I just take a scrap piece of Dollar Tree rope, and then I unwind it into individual little strings here where I can add that here to the front. So it's just another fun element. It looks like something that a bird would make a nest out of. And I'm just going to glue the little pieces of string to the Spanish moss and have it kind of curve up a little bit there on the sides. And I haven't attached my quail yet. I want to get, the background and everything in the right place so I know exactly where to place these. So I'm really glad I didn't do 3. As you can see, there's no way I'm going to be able to fit 3 little babies here. I want them to be like facing the mama quail. And so I just attached them with hot glue. And it's just a very 3D diorama shadow box. It turned out so cool. And then we can have like the mama quail like right here, front and center. And we're going to also add some fun fall little touches to this as well. I glued mama down as well. Now for the frame, I'm going to use some of this camping kindling wood. I got this at Dollar General for only $1, and I thought it'd be fun for crafting, and this worked out really well. It stained beautifully too. It's the perfect length, so I will have to cut 2 down to make it fit the very front of this shadow box design. And of course, I want to give it a quick stain. I just used some antique wax by Waverly, and I went ahead and stained 3 sides of all of them. And it stained beautiful. It was very rustic looking. And I knew this would come in handy for crafting. This is one of the reasons why I told you guys to pick some of this up. I know several of you guys saw it and had the same idea, so that's always fun. I just use a paper towel to wipe off the excess stain, and then we can start putting this together. It is the exact same length as a sign. I'm just going to glue this here to the edge, kind of lining up the outside, and I'm going to do that top to bottom on both sides. And then for the other pieces, we can cut those down to fit in between. Doesn't that look so cool? It's a really cool wood grain on there. I'm just going to mark exactly how big I want these to be. Take these to my saw and cut these down. And what a quick, easy way to do a frame for a shadow box. And it really gives you that like shadow box feel because it's all boxed in. But this looks way better than the edges of the sign did before. And I just attached all the pieces with hot glue. Now I decided I wanted the mama quail sticking out a little bit more 3D, so I just added a little mini Jenga block behind her just to finish that off and make her stick out a little bit more. And then I added a Dollar Tree foam pumpkin in green, one of the clip ones. I just removed the clip, attached that with hot glue, and then I thought maybe a couple of the little acorns from the Dollar Tree would be cute in there. This dark brown color I think looks nice, so I'm just going to glue a couple of those around the area, but we've already got a lot going on, so I think that is enough decor for this little quail shadow box, but I really love how it turned out. I think it's really cute. What do you guys think about our little fall quail shadow box diorama? I really kind of stepped outside my comfort zone with this and really experimented, but I really love the results. I think it's so whimsical and fun. And if you recreate this DIY, please show me and let me know. I'd love to see it. You'll have to post it in our Facebook group because I would love to see what you come up with. And now it's time for the final reveal. I really hope you enjoyed the Craftys Seasons Part 1. It got too long, so I had to split it into 2 different videos. I put out a lot of content, don't I? And let me know which DIY was your favorite down in the comments below, and enjoy the final reveal.
I hope we don't fail to see forget what you love the most. I just wanna keep you close, so we have to give it one more try before the idiots are taking over. They're caught up in the race of wanting more, and we can tell one from the other. No one can tell you what they're running from. No one knows anymore. What's it for? What's it for? There's so much more than we've been told, way beyond what we can hold. So keep your eyes open for the things that really matter. Oh, we have to give it one more try now that the idiots are taking over. They're caught up in the race of wanting more, and we can tell one from the other. No one can tell you what they're running from. No one knows anymore. What's it for? What's it for? Oh no. One more time before it's over. They're caught up in the race of wanting more, and we can tell one from the other. No one can tell you what they're running from. No one knows anymore. What's it for? What's it for?
I was quietly protective of my heart to reassure that I couldn't break to pieces and be left alone once more. If you hadn't been so patient, you'd be easy to ignore. You put up with all my till you didn't anymore. And now I stand here calling at your door. Oh, now I stand here calling at your door. Yeah, I'm yours anywhere you want. Yeah, I'm yours. And now we're singing. I have made a lot of mistakes. I have been too self-involved, been protective of my feelings, but somehow you made me fall. You got underneath the surface and you shattered every wall. And I know I got that feeling, there's no question anymore. And now I stand here calling at your door. Oh, now I stand here calling at your door. Yeah, I'm yours anywhere you want. Yeah, I'm yours. And now we're singing. Of my heart to reassure that it couldn't break to pieces and be left alone once more. You got underneath the surface and you shattered every wall. And I know I got that feeling, there's no question anymore. And now I stand here calling at your door. Oh, now
Thank you so much for making it all the way to the end of today's crafting marathon. I'd also like to thank my YouTube members for supporting my channel. Thank you to Melinda Elizabeth, Jamie Job, Janae Farrington, Pamelia Wren, Donna Schreiner, I Am Mojo Jojo, Marin Christensen, Adrian Brolt, Debbie Middleton, Red Mama, Pal Puppy Life, Renee Albanese, Jenny, Debbie Austin, James Osborne, and Lizette Thomas. Thank you so much for your support. Every little bit helps here on YouTube. If you would like to join, all you have to do is hit the join button next to today's video on your phone or your computer. Would you like even more Dollar Tree DIYs? Be sure to check out one of these videos right here. And until next time, happy crafting and Happy New Year.